Chapter 375. Reaching the Saint Domain on the first floor of the Yuanqi Tower, all the representatives of the other cities on the islands of the Endless Ocean raised their heads to look at the huge island in the sky that seemed to blot out the sun. Everyone's eyes were filled with deep shock. The Origin Qi Tower had only been opened for a short period of time, but someone had already taken the lead to seize control of the island and opened the passage to the second floor. This really surprised many people. Kai. At the same time, a huge light screen appeared in the void again. At this time, the name of the island and the team that had passed the first floor was displayed in the first position of the light screen. Treasure Island, Pass, House of Marquis Qin. Looking at the golden words on the first position of the light screen, Zhuowen and the other two revealed a look of understanding. The House of Marquis Qin's team had many Ultimate Emperor Realm experts. Among them, Tao was a monster ranked 15th on the Azure Emperor list. Although Zhuowen and the other two were a little surprised that they were able to pass so quickly, they didn't show too much emotion. As expected of the House of Marquis Qin, they were actually able to seize control of the island and reach the second floor so quickly. The House of Marquis Qin is too strong. If there are no accidents, the House of Marquis Qin will probably take first place in this Origin Qi Tower battle. Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuiying looked at the words on the light screen with surprise, their voices filled with strong envy. Zhuowen, on the other hand, was silent. He just narrowed his eyes and stared at the huge island that was gradually getting farther and farther away. At the same time, Zhuowen also noticed that Priest Choshue, who was standing beside him, didn't seem to have the slightest feeling about the roar just now. She didn't even notice the huge island that was rising in the distance. It seemed that the vestigial clan living on the island couldn't discover what was happening outside the island. This phenomenon was probably caused by Lu Nantian. Compared to the commotion inside the tower, it was even noisier outside the tower. When Treasure Island was the first to enter the second floor, many of the city lords in the 4 squares outside the tower were shocked. Although they knew that the Muqin Marquis estate had a monstrous existence like Tao and would definitely obtain first place in the Origin Energy Tower, what shocked them was that the time taken by the Muqin Marquis estate's team was a little too short. Only 2 days had passed, yet they had already smoothly broken through the first level of the Origin Energy Tower. Looking at the golden house of Marquis Qin on the light screen, the corners of Lu Nantian's mouth involuntarily curled up into a smile. Clearly, as the owner of the House of Marquis Qin, he was quite proud of the fact that the House of Marquis Qin's team could enter the second level so quickly. Marquis Lu, with a monstrous genius like Tao, your House of Marquis Qin should have no problem winning the Origin Qi Tower this time. Originally, I thought that with the rapid progress of the falling star in the past few years, he would be able to compete with your House of Marquis Qin. Now that I think about it, I'm afraid it was simply a fool's dream. The master of the meteorite said with a bit of jealousy. There's no need to be so calculative. Your Jade Lady Starcourt's strength is also not bad, you don't need to belittle yourself. Nantian said rather modestly. However, the smile that involuntarily appeared on his face completely betrayed his current mood. The other powerful figures on the platform didn't speak, they just stared at the light screen with a dignified expression. They were very clear about the gap between them and the House of Marquis Qin, so they didn't ask for a rebuff by competing with Lu Nantian. On the Sandstone Island, after the Treasure Island had completely broken through the void and left the first layer, Zhuowen and the other two slowly withdrew their gazes. Soon, we will arrive at the Sacred Realm. At that time, the other 4 advanced cities will also gather in the Sacred City. We need to be careful. There are still 2 days of travel, we can't slack off. We need to improve our strength as much as possible. Zhuowen glanced at Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuiying, said a few words, and then entered the inner cabin of the Qingfan boat. The Qingfan boat was very big, there were many rooms in the inner cabin. Zhuowen randomly chose a room and sat cross-legged on the boat. After the qi in his body had completely stabilized, Zhuowen took out a flame-like jade from his Chenkuan bag. It was the refined crystal jade. Of the 4 high-grade cities on the Sandstone Island, the 2 teams from Azure Dragon City and Jiayu City are much weaker. They are only ranked below average among the high-grade cities. However, Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City are somewhat terrifying. Especially Nine Dragon City, it is said that they have 3 half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm experts, the strongest of which can break through to the Ultimate Emperor Realm at any time. His strength is probably not weaker than an ordinary Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Looking at the refined crystal jade in his hand, Zhuo Wen couldn't help but recall the information regarding Nine Dragons City. At that time, Jiu Tian had spent a lot of effort on the information regarding these cities, in order to know oneself as well as the enemy. Therefore, Zhuo Wen knew that there were many extremely strong team representatives that he needed to pay attention to, and this Nine Dragons City was specifically mentioned by Jiu Tian. Nine Dragon City's team has 3 half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm experts, one of which is comparable to an Ultimate Emperor Realm expert. Nine Dragon City should be the most difficult to deal with. If it was a one-on-one battle, I wouldn't be afraid. However, if the 3 half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm experts from Nine Dragon City attacked together, even I might not be able to deal with them. Zhuo Wen frowned as he muttered to himself. Kid, you have enough refined crystal jades now. You can definitely cultivate the jade body tempering technique to the 7th level. At that time, your physical strength will be comparable to a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm expert, and your strength will far surpass that of Atos. At that time, you won't need to fear Nine Dragon City's team at all. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Nodding slightly, Zhuo Wen muttered, of course I know that. However, I only have 2 days. Even if I have refined crystal jades, I'm afraid that I won't be able to cultivate the jade body tempering technique to the 7th level in 2 days. You should cultivate first. Refined crystal jades have the effect of tempering the body. Under the effects of refined crystal jades, even if it's only 2 days, the quality of your physical body will increase by a lot. Xiao Hei said somewhat helplessly. That's true. I just don't know if the effects of refined crystal jades are as obvious as described in the jade body tempering technique. After muttering to himself for a while, Zhuo Wen locked his gaze onto the refined crystal jades in his palm. Taking a deep breath, he urged the yuan power in his body to drill into the flame-like jades. Sizzle. The sound of something burning suddenly rang out. Under the guidance of the yuan power, the refined crystal jades in Zhuo Wen's palm actually emitted an extremely hot aura. Following which, a dense red flame burst out from the refined crystal jades and enveloped Zhuo Wen's entire body. The blazing high temperature directly burned Zhuo Wen's body. Under the scorching heat, Zhuo Wen's skin actually began to become extremely charred and his flesh began to curl up. Looking at the faint signs of his skin being charred, Zhuo Wen could not help but be shocked. He hurriedly urged the jade body tempering technique and the charred surface of his skin was immediately dispelled. His skin emitted a jade-like luster. This refined crystal jades is really extraordinary. The temperature contained within it is so high. If I don't use the jade body tempering technique, even I will find it difficult to withstand such high temperature. Looking around at the surrounding flames, Zhuo Wen's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He could feel that although the temperature of these flames was almost comparable to that of an Earth-grade flame, there was not a trace of invasion or destruction. Instead, it seemed to be extremely gentle. Seeing the flames emitted by the refined crystal jades, Zhuo Wen finally understood why the refined crystal jades were the most suitable for tempering the body. Such gentle flames could gradually promote the body to continuously adapt to the high temperature and achieve the effect of tempering the body. The human body was extremely fragile. If it was not tempered properly, it could easily collapse. Even if Zhuo Wen practiced the jade body tempering technique, he did not dare to use a barbaric energy like the earth fire to temper his body. This was because the earth fire was too destructive. Even with Zhuo Wen's current body, it was difficult for him to withstand the destructive power of the earth fire. However, the flames in the refined crystal jades did not have this concern at all. These flames had the scorching heat of the earth fire but did not have the destructive power of the earth fire. Instead, they were very gentle and were the most suitable for tempering the body. The effect of one refined crystal jades is not that obvious. It seems that I need to add another one. Although the surrounding flames were extremely hot, Zhuo Wen, who had used the jade body tempering technique, did not feel much. Therefore, he took out another refined crystal jades from his Chenkuan bag. Sizzle. All of a sudden, the originally inconspicuous flame suddenly became several times more vigorous, and the temperature in the room also rose to an extremely exaggerated level. It was as if the room Zhuo Wen was in had become a furnace for alchemy. As he felt the surrounding temperature increase once again, Zhuo Wen nodded his head in satisfaction. Soon after, he closed his eyes and began to silently circulate the jade stone body tempering skill under this high temperature, using the surrounding high temperature to continuously temper his body. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. During these 2 days, many things had happened. Since the house of Marquis Qin successfully seized the treasure island 2 days ago and broke through the void to enter the second layer, the remaining 4 superforces did not want to be outdone and succeeded in seizing the islands one after another. Ranked from 2nd to 5th were Jade Lady Starcourt, Marquis Bai Chuan, Marquis Yongsheng, and Imperial Sword Sect. In addition to these 4 superforces, some of the more powerful supercities had also entered the second layer within 2 days. In these 2 days, nearly 100 islands had successfully ascended. A huge and vast oasis slowly emerged in the distance. That oasis was the sacred realm of the lost race. In the center of the sacred realm, a sacred city stood alone like a coiling dragon. It looked proud, aloof, and had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Whoosh! A green airship flashed across the sky and headed straight for the sacred realm. On the deck of the green airship, Ji Yuxin, Hu Wuiying, and Priestess Choshire looked at the oasis in the distance with joyful smiles on their faces. Chapter 376. Encounter. As they approached the sacred region, Priest Choshire's beautiful eyes flashed as she said, "The sacred region is shrouded in a force that restricts flight, so we can't directly enter by flying boat. We have to get off the boat." Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuiying were a little surprised, but they didn't ask any questions. "Wuiying, you control the airship to land. I'll call Brother Zhuo." Ji Yuxin instructed Hu Wuiying and entered the airship's cabin. He quickly found Zhuowen's room. What surprised Ji Yuxin was that when he approached Zhuowen's room, he could faintly feel a trace of heat. The closer he got to Zhuowen's room, the more intense it became. When he arrived at the door of Zhuowen's room, the blazing aura had almost reached its peak. The scorching heat even caused Ji Yuxin's breathing to quicken, and the skin on the surface of his skin began to curl up. This somewhat oppressive feeling immediately caused Ji Yuxin to be extremely shocked. What is Zhuowen doing in his room? Why is it emitting such a high temperature? I can't stand it even if I'm outside the room. Ji Yuxin's face was solemn as he thought to himself. Dong, dong. Someone knocked on the door. Enduring the high temperature, Ji Yuxin said in a deep voice, "Brother Zhuo, we've arrived at the sanctuary. We should get off the airship." After a while, a clear voice sounded in the room. "Okay, got it. I'll go to the deck immediately." Hearing the voice in the room, Ji Yuxin heaved a sigh of relief. The sudden high temperature in Zhuowen's room really scared Ji Yuxin. He thought something bad had happened to Zhuowen. Now that he heard Zhuowen's voice, he relaxed. At the same time, a sliver of shock flashed through Ji Yuxin's heart. The scorching aura he sensed clearly came from Zhuowen's room. Even when he was outside the room, he felt his chest tighten and his breathing become ragged, let alone the temperature in the room. It was definitely much hotter than outside. Zhuowen's voice was full of energy just now. It was clear that he wasn't affected by the heat at all. This made Ji Yuxin respect Zhuowen even more. At the same time, he felt even more complicated. The young man who was weaker than him in the past had now left him far behind. Looking at the room with a complicated look, Ji Yuxin quickly left the inner cabin and returned to the deck. At this moment, the room was already filled with a rich fiery red color. It was clusters of flames that were constantly burning, almost covering the entire room. On the bed near the corner of the room, a topless young man slowly opened his eyes. The young man's naked upper body had a jade-like luster. The surrounding blazing flames didn't have the slightest effect on him. Instead, the young man twisted his neck as if nothing had happened and stood up. 2 days is really too short. Even if I use 3 quenching crystal jades to release the quenching fire at the same time to temper my body, I still haven't reached the 7th level of the jade body tempering technique! Reaching out his right hand, Zhuowen gently squeezed it. The surrounding flames immediately gathered in his hand and condensed into 3 flame-shaped quenching crystal jades in his palm. However, the color of these 3 quenching crystal jades had become rather dim. Obviously, Zhuowen's continuous use over the past 2 days had caused the flame energy within the quenching crystal jades to become thinner and thinner. Although you haven't successfully entered the 7th level of the Jade Body Tempering Technique, your current physical strength has increased by about 30%. I'm afraid you're not far from the 7th level of the Jade Body Tempering Technique. Now, even if you meet Lu Yuanhua again, you won't be suppressed by him even if you don't rely on the fire and ice lotus. Xiao Hei's voice slowly sounded in Yang Liqiang's mind. Lu Yuanhua has only just advanced to the ultimate emperor realm after all. His strength can't be considered strong, it's just that Lu Yongsheng is quite troublesome. If we meet again in the Origin Qi Tower, I'm afraid that guy will really kill me. Narrowing his eyes, a trace of coldness flashed across Zhuowen's face. Last time in the mortal stage loft, Lu Yongsheng had almost killed him. If it weren't for Qiu Chou and Miss Qing Lian, Zhuowen might have really died on the spot. Lu Yongsheng is an ultimate Emperor Realm expert and a genius on the Azure Emperor rankings. I'm afraid that even if you cultivate the Jade Body Tempering Technique to the 7th level, you still won't be a match for Lu Yongsheng. If you meet him, you'll really be in trouble. Xiao Hei suddenly gloated. It's not that early to meet Lu Yongsheng. After all, the first 3 levels of the Origin Qi Tower are for the power rankings. The 4th level is for the individual rankings. If Lu Yongsheng wants to make a move, he'll probably wait until I enter the 4th level. Zhuowen said with a sinister gaze. Hee. With that guy's arrogant personality, I'm afraid he won't think that you have the qualifications to enter the 4th level. Of course, he won't let you go just like that. Perhaps after the battle for the Origin Qi Tower ends, Lu Yongsheng will find trouble with you. Even Rattan Armor City and the Zhuo family might be implicated. Xiao Hei added fuel to the fire, wishing for the world to be in chaos. Zhuowen's expression was extremely calm as he said, "Don't worry. I'm still confident that I can enter the 4th level. Moreover, the Origin Qi in the Origin Qi Tower is so rich that it gives me a chance. As long as I advance to the ultimate Emperor realm, coupled with the power of the Jade Body Tempering Technique and the 2 Saint Talismans, even if I can't defeat Lu Yongsheng, it's still possible for me to survive. Alright. Right now, I'm not thinking about Lu Yongsheng, but how to seize control of the Sandstone Island. Since we've arrived at the sacred region, I won't hand over control of the Sandstone Island." Whoosh. As he spoke, Zhuowen put on his clothes and walked out of the room to the deck. At this moment, Ji Yuxin and the other 2 on the deck also noticed Zhuowen. They nodded slightly at him and tried their best to control the Qingfan boat to land slowly. After nodding, Zhuowen looked through the deck and saw the huge oasis in the distance, as well as the huge city that looked like a coiling dragon in the middle of the oasis. Is that the holy city? It's really huge. Looking at the holy city in front of him, Zhuowen couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The holy city's scale was much larger than Broken Rock City. Perhaps only a province could compare to it. Boom. At the same time, the Qingfan boat slowly descended from the sky and finally stopped at the edge of the sacred region. Then, the 4 of them walked down the Qingfan boat and looked at the lush green oasis in front of them. "The 3 of you, this is the edge of the sacred region. It's only about half a day's journey to the holy city in the center. We only need to walk there." After getting off the boat, Priest Choshui said with a smile. Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying looked at Zhuowen with excitement in their eyes. They knew that the control center of the Sandstone Island was in the holy city. This time, the teams entering the holy city would not only be limited to Rattan Armor City. When the time came, it would definitely be a fierce battle. Even Zhuowen's eyes were filled with hope. "Let's go. I hope that we're not too late." As he spoke, Zhuowen took the lead and entered the sacred region. Ji Yuxin and the other 2 followed closely behind. The sacred region was indeed the core of the Sandstone Island. Not long after entering the sacred region, Zhuowen's group of 4 met many vestigial clan members. These vestigial clan members were all talking and laughing. Moreover, Their strength was not ordinary. Clearly, they were all preparing to enter the holy city. After walking for a few hours, the mundane rank token on Zhuowen's waist suddenly lit up. Zhuowen couldn't help but stop and frown as he looked at the mundane rank token on his waist. "What's wrong?" Jiyu Xin and the other two asked curiously when they saw Zhuowen stop. The mundane rank token's reaction is quite intense. "I'm afraid that there are teams from other cities nearby." Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice. Hearing this, Priest Choshui was a little confused. However, Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying's expressions changed drastically when they saw the abnormality of the token on Zhuowen's waist. They didn't expect to encounter teams from other cities as soon as they entered the sacred region. Teams from other cities participating in the Vitality Tower battle had their own identity token. This identity token not only indicated the identity of a team from a city, but also could detect the presence of teams from other cities within a certain range. If a team from another city was within the detection range of the identity token would light up. This was why Zhuowen and the other two's expressions were so solemn when they saw the identity token light up. "I wonder what level the teams from the nearby cities are. Don't tell me we'll encounter a team from a high-level city right from the start," Jiyu Xin said rather gloomily. "We shouldn't be that unlucky, right?" Hu Wuying said somewhat nervously. After all, the two of them were born in a low-level city like Ratanama City. In their eyes, high-level cities were all high and mighty existences. Even if they knew that there was a powerhouse like Zhuowen by their side, there was always a trace of uncertainty in their hearts. "Priest Choshui, we still have some things to take care of. You should enter the sacred city first. It might be very dangerous later. If you get dragged into it, we'll be a little apologetic." Zhuowen suddenly turned his head and said seriously to Priest Choshui. Zhuowen knew that if they met the teams from the unknown cities, a big battle would be unavoidable. If it was a low-level or mid-level city, Zhuowen wouldn't care so much. However, if it was a high-level city, then it would be a little troublesome. At that time, even Zhuowen would find it difficult to take care of Priest Choshui. Priest Choshui was startled when she heard this. However, after seeing the dignified expression on Zhuowen's face, she hesitated for a moment. In the end, she nodded and said, "If that's the case, then I'll go to the sacred city first. I'll wait for you there." Priest Choshui was a beautiful and intelligent woman. She was very clear about Zhuowen's strength. If he could make the former reveal a dignified expression, then it was likely that they would encounter big trouble ahead. She knew that with her meager strength, she would undoubtedly become a burden to Zhuowen. Therefore, she simply agreed to Zhuowen's suggestion. Looking at Priest Choshui's gradually disappearing figure, Zhuowen also breathed a sigh of relief. Letting Priest Choshui go first was undoubtedly the best choice at this time. Whoosh! At the same time, the token on Zhuowen's waist became even brighter. The light it emitted became particularly dazzling. "The other party has also discovered us. Now they're rushing towards us. It seems that we have to prepare for battle." Chapter 377. Devil Iron City Rustle Rustle Rustle. Soft rustling sounds suddenly rang out in the dense forest. Zhuowen and the other two immediately focused their gazes on the source of the sound. They saw 5 figures slowly walking out from the corner a few dozen meters in front of them. There were 3 men and 2 women among the 5. The leader was a young woman around the age of 20. She was beautiful and had a graceful figure. She wore a tight black dress that outlined her beautiful figure. What was even more rare was that her skin was extremely white, like snow. The other 4 people all followed this woman's lead. It was obvious that this woman was the leader of this team. Walking out of the dense forest, the 5 people's gazes gathered on Zhuowen and the other 2. Especially after seeing the word mortal on the token on Zhuowen's waist that was still shining. More or less, a trace of contempt and disdain appeared in their eyes. The mortal rank token was the lowest level token, representing a low-level city. The token on the waist of the leading woman was a mortal rank token. Obviously, these 5 people were a team from an intermediate city. Naturally, The 5 of them were filled with a sense of superiority towards a low-level city that was 1 level lower than them. What a bummer. It's actually a low-level city again. Why didn't we meet other intermediate cities? Another woman in the team glanced at the token on Zhuowen's waist and curled her lips in displeasure. This woman was younger than the leading woman. There was a trace of immaturity on her pretty face. Moreover, her face was somewhat similar to the other woman's. Obviously, the 2 women were related by blood. Second sister, don't talk so much. The situation is critical now. 1 more person means 1 more force. The leading woman helplessly glared at the complaining woman. Soon after, she came in front of Zhuowen and the other 2 and said with a faint smile, "The 3 of you, we are from Devil Iron City, an intermediate city. You don't have to be nervous. The 5 of us are not here to fight with you. My name is Zhong Xinya. The one who spoke just now is my younger sister, Zhong Huia. She is young and speaks without thinking. I hope the 3 of you don't take it to heart." When Zhuowen and the other 2 heard this, they couldn't help but look at each other. The woman in front of them was so polite. Obviously, she didn't have any hostility towards them. However, what surprised them was that Zhong Xinya was still so polite even though she knew that they were from a low-level city. This made the 3 of them a little confused. My name is Zhuowen. I am from Rattan Armor City, a low-level city. These 2 are my companions, Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying. Although Zhuowen was a little puzzled as to why this lady called Zhong Xinya was so polite to them, he still replied politely. As he spoke, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Of Zhuowen. And why didn't your Devil Iron City directly enter the Holy City? Why are you wandering outside the Holy City? If I'm not wrong, you're deliberately trying to get close to our team. Zhong Xinya was stunned when she heard this. She didn't expect the ordinary young man in front of her to be so meticulous. She also noticed that Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying were deliberately standing behind the youngest young man in front of her. Obviously, they faintly followed the young man's lead. This young man seems to be a little complicated, Zhong Xinya thought. However, that was all there was to it. After all, Zhuowen's group of 3 had only come from a low-level city. Although Zhuowen, the youngest among them, was not an ordinary person, Zhong Xinya did not think much of him. After all, there was a huge difference between a low-level city and an intermediate city. Hearing this, Zhong Xinya was quite surprised. It seems that the 3 of you really don't know anything. Know what? When Zhuowen heard this, he faintly felt that something was wrong and quickly asked. You really don't know anything. Coming from a low-level city, you are really the most useless. You don't know anything. Let me tell you, if you continue to move forward, I'm afraid you won't even be able to keep your lives. The younger Zhong Huia sneered. Zhong Huia's sneer made Zhuowen frown slightly, but he didn't bother to pay attention to this snobbish woman. He just silently waited for her to continue. The 5 people from Devil Iron City should have reached the Holy Region earlier than them. Logically speaking, they should have entered the Holy City by now. However, they were now wandering outside the Holy City. It was obvious that they had encountered something that prevented them from entering the Holy City. Zhuowen could ignore Zhong Huia's sarcasm, but it didn't mean that Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying beside him didn't care. Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying immediately glared at Zhong Huia and said, "You'd better watch your mouth. Yo. You're not convinced. You 3 trash from a low-level city want to be on equal footing with us from a middle-level city. Don't you know what kind of trash you are? I only need 1 hand to knock the 3 of you down." The sarcasm on Zhong Huia's pretty face grew stronger as she spoke unscrupulously. Creak. Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying clenched their fists so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard. They gritted their teeth and glared at Zhong Huia. Just as they were about to attack, they were stopped by Zhuowen. Don't be impulsive. We still haven't figured out what's going on, Zhuowen said indifferently. However, his eyes were filled with a chilling intent. Hearing this, Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying also calmed down. They snorted coldly and retreated behind Zhuowen, ignoring the sneering Zhong Huia. Your captain is sensible. If you had attacked just now, I'm afraid you would have lost your lives, Zhong Huia sneered. Her pretty face could not help but reveal a smug look. Just when she was about to mock again, she was directly interrupted by Zhuowen. "That's enough. If you're done, tell me what happened," Zhuowen said coldly as he stared coldly at the unscrupulous Zhong Huiya. Suddenly interrupted by Zhuowen, Zhong Huiya could not help but be stunned. The smug look on her face suddenly turned gloomy. She pointed at Zhuowen and said, "Who do you think you are? How dare you point your finger at me? Did I allow you to speak? Do you believe that I won't tear your mouth apart?" Hearing Zhong Huiya's unruly words, Zhuowen finally became a little impatient. The original coldness in his eyes had been replaced by killing intent. The 5 people in front of him were only a team from an intermediate city. The strongest, Zhong Xinya, was only at the advanced Heavenly King stage. The younger Zhong Huiya was at the initial Heavenly King stage. The remaining 3 were only at the Earth King stage. With Zhuowen's strength, he could definitely kill the 5 of them in an instant. The moment Zhong Huiya met Zhuowen's murderous eyes, her face suddenly stiffened. Her pretty face became extremely pale, and she swallowed the words that she wanted to say. Zhong Xinya, who had fallen silent, felt Zhuowen's murderous intent, and her heart skipped a beat. She quickly changed the topic and said, "Actually, it's like this. Within a few hundred meters of the Holy City, there are 2 teams from high-grade cities guarding it. They are waiting for the opportunity to annihilate the other low-grade and middle-grade cities. If we go there rashly, I'm afraid that we will be defeated one by one. Therefore, the reason why we are loitering here is to gather enough teams to fight against the 2 teams from advanced cities outside the city. This is also the reason why we took the initiative to approach the other teams when we found that they were approaching. After all, there is strength in numbers. Although we are only from intermediate and low cities, if we have enough people, we are not afraid of those advanced cities. Therefore, I hope that you can join us. This way, the chances of entering the Holy City will be higher." Upon hearing this, Zhuowen was a little surprised. He did not expect that there would be 2 teams from high-grade cities waiting outside the Holy City. Obviously, the high-grade cities that had entered the Holy City did not want the other middle-grade and low-grade cities to take advantage of the situation. After eliminating the weaker teams from the middle-grade and low-grade cities, only the high-grade cities would be left to compete with each other. Zhong Xinya looked at Zhuowen with some expectation. After Zhuowen released his murderous intent, she faintly felt that the young man in front of her was definitely not weak. At the same time, she was a little surprised that he could release such a murderous intent. How many people had he killed to have such a strong murderous intent? Zhuowen didn't rush to agree. Instead, he pondered for a while and said, "How many teams have you gathered? Also, who are the 2 teams from advanced cities outside the Holy City?" "We've already gathered 4 teams from low-level cities. Including you guys, we'll have 5 teams. There are 2 teams from intermediate cities. One is from our Devil Iron City, and the other is from Gangshan City. Gangshan City is stronger than our Devil Iron City. The 2 teams from advanced cities outside the Holy City are Azure Dragon City and Jiayu City. These 2 teams are relatively weak." Zhong Xinya didn't hide anything. "Brother Jiyu, Brother Hu, what do you 2 think?" Zhuowen asked the 2 behind him with a smile. "Brother Zhuo, you are our team leader. You make the decision." Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying shook their heads. "Then we will also join you." After pondering for a while, Zhuowen said with a smile. At this time, Zhuowen didn't want to expose his strength too much. Naturally, Zhuowen wasn't afraid of Azure Dragon City and Jiayu City. However, he was a little afraid of Thunder Universe City and Nine Dragon City. These 2 teams from advanced cities were indeed strong. Even at this time, Zhuowen didn't have the slightest chance of winning against these 2 teams. If he exposed his strength too early, Nine Dragon City and Thunder Universe City might join forces to get rid of him first. At that time, it would be really not worth the loss. Seeing Zhuowen agree, Zhong Xinya's pretty face suddenly showed a trace of joy. Although Zhuowen only came from a low cities, she felt that this young man in front of her wasn't simple. Perhaps he could be of help to their alliance this time. "Now that we are considered to be in the same camp, I will now take the 3 of you to join the other teams. At that time, we can go to the Holy City together." Chapter 378. Arrangement. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Black figures shuttled through the dense forest, causing the birds in the forest to fly into the sky. The crisp chirps of the birds converged into a pleasant melody. Not long after, the figures shuttling through the forest stopped in a rather wide open space. At this time, there were already many people gathered in the open space. These people had obviously heard the wind in the forest, and all of them looked at the forest with vigilance. However, when these people saw a group of people rushing over from the forest, the cautious expression on their faces slowly disappeared. There were even some people who laughed and said, "The 5 from the Devil Iron City have all returned. It seems that they have even brought along new companions." Amidst the teasing of some people in the open space, Zhong Xinya, Zhong Huia, and the other 4 from Devil Iron City appeared in the open space with Zhuowen and the other 2. Zhuowen. These people on the open space were gathered by us. Among them, there are 4 teams from low-grade cities. The 6 people in the middle of the open space are from another middle-grade city, Gang City. Gang City is slightly stronger than Devil Iron City, and they are the main force to break through into the Holy City this time. Before arriving at the open space, Zhong Xinya introduced the few teams on the open space to Zhuowen in detail. When she introduced Gang City, a hint of fear appeared on Zhong Xinya's pretty face. Zhong Huia, who had a somewhat unruly personality, recovered from the shock at this time and could not help but snort coldly. "It's no different from not having a low-grade city like your Vine Armor City. The main force is still our Devil Iron City and Gang City. When the time comes, you only need to put in a little effort. You're really lucky this time." Completely ignoring Zhong Huia, Zhuowen's gaze landed on the 6 people in the middle of the open space, especially the young man in yellow who was leading the 6. Zhong Xinya had already introduced him to Zhuowen on the way here. This young man in yellow was the captain of Gang City, and his name was Zheng Yi. His strength had reached the complete Heavenly King stage. With the foundation of a middle-grade city, being able to cultivate to the complete Heavenly King stage meant that Zheng Yi was quite talented. When Zheng Yi saw Zhong Xinya and the others, a smile appeared on his handsome face. He slowly walked towards Zhong Xinya, ignoring Zhuowen and the others beside Zhong Xinya. Instead, he fixed his gaze on Zhong Xinya and said with a smile, "Xinya, this time, we only need the cooperation of Devil Iron City and Gang City to enter the Holy City. It's too superfluous to find trash from a low-grade city." From the beginning to the end, Zheng Yi did not take Zhuowen and the others seriously. After all, Zhuowen and the others were from a low-grade city. To him, having them was as good as not having them. They would not be of much use. Zhong Xinya couldn't help but frown when she sensed Zheng Yi's burning gaze. She said coldly, "Xinya knows that young Master Zheng is very strong, but we're facing 2 high-rank cities. Even if Azure Dragon City and Jiayu City don't have any half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm experts, they have a lot more Heavenly King Realm cultivators than we do. That's not something our 2 mid-rank cities can withstand." Zheng Yi did not mind Zhong Xinya's cold attitude at all. He smiled and said, "I was just joking. These 3 should be the team you just brought back, right?" As he spoke, Zheng Yi's gaze landed on Zhuowen and the others. He said indifferently, "I am Zheng Yi from Gang City. May I know who you are?" Seeing Zheng Yi's perfunctory attitude, Zhuowen could not be bothered with this guy who was bursting with a sense of superiority. He only replied indifferently, "Rattan Armor City is only a low-grade city." After he finished speaking, he walked past Zheng Yi with Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying. He casually chose an empty space and sat down cross-legged on the ground. Zheng Yi's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw Zhuowen's group of 3 walk past him. These lowly commoners from 3 low-level cities actually didn't give him any face. This made Zheng Yi feel rather displeased, and he looked at the backs of Zhuowen's group with a cold gaze. "Young Master Zheng, if there's nothing else, I'll go and arrange the team first." Zhong Xinya did not have a good impression of Zheng Yi. She said indifferently and walked past him. She arranged the team in the center of the empty space and prepared to go to the Holy City. Zheng Yi's face became even uglier. A trace of anger suddenly appeared on his face. He snorted in a low voice, "Zhong Xinya, there's no woman that I, Zheng Yi, can't get my hands on." As he spoke, Zheng Yi's gaze once again converged on Zhuo Wen and the other two people in a remote corner of the open space. The corners of his mouth revealed a trace of a sinister smile as he thought to himself, the lowly people of these three low-level cities have quite a temper. However, these kinds of people usually die the fastest. Deng. The sound of footsteps approaching suddenly interrupted Zheng Yi's thoughts. He slowly raised his head and saw Zhong Huiya standing in front of him. She whispered softly, "Young Master Zheng, are you interested in cooperating with me?" Zheng Yi looked at Zhong Huiya in surprise. He did not expect Zhong Huiya, who had always kept a respectful distance from him, to take the initiative to approach him. Looking at Zhong Huiya's delicate face and delicate body, Zheng Yi's eyes flashed with an undetectable strangeness. "Oh, cooperation? Sister Huiya, why do you want to cooperate with me?" Zheng Yi grinned. "Young Master Zheng, you must have seen the arrogant attitude of the three from Ratanama City. These lowly people from low-grade cities are very lucky to join our team. They have the opportunity to break through the defenses of Green Dragon City and Jiayu City and enter the Holy City. However, the three of them did not appreciate it at all. Their attitude was even more arrogant. If we don't teach them a lesson, they won't know the power of our middle-grade cities." Zhong Huiya sneered. Zhang Yi was stunned. He did not expect Zhong Huiya to cooperate with him because of Zhuowen and the others. Looking at Zhong Huiya's expression, Zheng Yi guessed that the three of them must have offended the unruly Zhong Huiya in front of him. Otherwise, Zhong Huiya would not have come to him personally. The three of them are really arrogant. They are just lowly people from low-grade cities. How dare they be so arrogant? I don't like it. However, there will be plenty of opportunities to teach them a lesson. When the time comes to fight with Green Dragon City and Jiayu City, we only need to do a little trick to make the three of them disappear from this world completely. Zhang Yi smiled coldly with a hint of killing intent in his eyes. Zhong Huiya couldn't help but be shocked when she heard this. Initially, she only wanted to work with Zheng Yi to teach Shuo Wen and the other two a lesson. However, she didn't expect Zheng Yi to be so ruthless as to directly kill the three of them. Zhong Huiya looked at Zheng Yi in front of her with fear. This person was so ruthless. No wonder her sister told her not to get close to Zheng Yi. As if seeing the fear on Zhong Huiya's face, Zheng Yi grinned and said jokingly, "What's wrong? Sister Huiya, you can't do it. Or you don't have the courage to do it. Nonsense. I also want to kill Zhuowen and the others. How can I not have the courage to do it?" Zhong Huiya quickly retorted with a flushed face after being provoked by Zheng Yi. "If that's the case, then that's for the best." Zhang Yi looked deeply at Zhong Huiya. After discussing some details with her, the two of them parted ways and returned to their respective teams as if nothing had happened. In a corner of the open space, Zhuowen noticed Zhong Huiya and Zheng Yi whispering not far away. He could not help but squint his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Not long after, Zhong Xinya arranged the other teams in the open space and said loudly, "Everyone knows that the only way to enter the Holy City has been blocked by the Azure Dragon City and Jiayu City, two high-grade cities. Fortunately, the strength of these two cities is not high, and they don't have any half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm experts. So, we only need to work together to break through the defenses of Green Dragon City and Jiayu City and enter the Holy City." As soon as Zhong Xinya spoke, the other teams in the open space became restless. However, they quickly calmed down. This Zhong Xinya was quite capable. The teams from the other low-level cities in the open space were quite convinced by Zhong Xinya. No one spoke out against her. The captains of Green Dragon City and Jiayu City are only at the perfect Heavenly King stage. Everyone knows that young Master Zheng Yi from Gangshan City is also at the perfect Heavenly King stage. When the time comes, young Master Zheng will restrain one of the captains, and my sister Zhong Huiya and I will work together to restrain the other captain. As for the other teams from Green Dragon City and Jiayu City, you will need to work together to deal with them. Although we are not as strong as Green Dragon City and Jiayu City, we have a lot more people. The difference in strength can be made up with numbers. We have a high chance of winning this battle." Zhong Xinya's tone was extremely calm from beginning to end. Her watery eyes swept across the open space as she continued, If no one has any objections, then let's set off now. After Zhong Xinya finished speaking, the other warriors in the open space stood up one after another. They lined up neatly in the center of the open space and looked at Zhong Xinya with reverence in their eyes. After all, Zhong Xinya was beautiful and strong. These warriors of the low-level cities were willing to listen to Zhong Xinya's orders. Zheng Yi, who was standing on the side, was slightly displeased. He was the strongest in the team, and had already reached the perfect Heavenly King stage. However, the cultivators from the lower cities only kept a respectful distance from him. On the other hand, Zhong Xinya, who was slightly weaker than him, had a much higher prestige than him. Since everyone agrees, let's set off now. Zhong Xinya nodded in satisfaction and nodded to Zheng Yi. Then, she led the team towards the holy city. Zheng Yi smiled coldly and followed closely behind. Zhuoan and the other two, who were originally sitting in the corner of the open space, didn't say anything. They just followed silently at the back of the team, appearing extremely inconspicuous. However, Zhuoan secretly transmitted his voice to Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying beside him. When we fight Green Dragon City and Jiayu City later, try to preserve your strength as much as possible. Zhong Huiya and Zhang Yi are probably up to no good. Chapter 379. Azure WM City and Jiayu City. As usual, the holy city was bustling with people coming and going. There were always many powerful warriors going in and out of the huge city gate. In a dense forest several hundred meters away from the holy city, two teams sat lazily in an empty space. They seemed to be discussing something. These two teams were guarding the two high-grade cities, Azure Dragon City and Jiayu City, outside the holy city. There were not many people in the two teams, and there were only 16 people in total. The strongest people in the two teams were the captains of the two teams, and their strength was at the great circle of the Heavenly King stage. The captain of Azure WM City was called Fan Shi. When Zhuoan and the others had arrived at the provincial capital, they had come into contact with the Azure WM City team. Naturally, they could recognize Fan Shi's appearance. He was only at the great circle of the Heavenly King stage. The captain of Jiayu City was called Chen Fu. He was a young man with brown hair and a resolute expression. Chen Fu's strength was similar to Fan Shi's, both at the great circle of the Heavenly King stage. How unlucky. We just had to be assigned to the same island as Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City. With the strength of our two teams, it's simply impossible for us to be a match for Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City. Fan Shi crossed his arms and leaned against a tree trunk as he complained. Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City both have 3 half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators. Nine Dragons City is the most terrifying of them all. It's said that their captain, Feng Long, can break through to the Ultimate Emperor Realm at any time. It's just that he's been suppressing his cultivation to the half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm. With Feng Long's strength, ordinary half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators are no match for him. Trying to compete with these two teams for the island is simply courting death, Chen Fu sneered. Both Azure WM City and Jiayu City knew their limits. They knew that with the two powerful teams, Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City, their chances of seizing control of the island were close to 0. As a result, they didn't plan on entering the holy city. However, Green Dragon City and Jiayu City were extremely unwilling to leave the tower empty-handed. Therefore, the two teams turned their attention to the remaining teams from the intermediate and low-level cities. Although the resources of the middle and low-level cities were far inferior to those of the high-level cities, the geniuses that were sent out this time were the geniuses of the cities. Moreover, the Qianquan bags of these geniuses often contained valuable items. Therefore, the Azure Dragon City and Jiayu City planned to make a good profit before leaving the Origin Chi Tower and snatch the Qianquan bags from the geniuses of the middle and low-level cities. Fan Shi gave a cold snort and said, "Humph. Naturally, I know that. This is also the reason why I didn't enter the Holy City and directly face the two teams from Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City." When Chen Fu heard this, he was about to say something sarcastic again when suddenly, a black shadow rushed towards Chen Fu from the depths of the forest. In the blink of an eye, it was only an inch away from Chen Fu's forehead. Clang! Chen Fu's eyes narrowed. His right hand formed a sword and pinched upwards, instantly catching the black shadow. When he focused his eyes, he discovered that the black shadow in his hand was actually a steel needle. Fan Shi. It seems that those lowly people from the middle and low-level cities can't hold back anymore. Get ready for battle, Chen Fu said coldly as he flicked the steel needle between his fingers and shot it at a tree trunk. This is good too. It saves us the trouble of looking for these guys. Fan Shi licked his lips and said excitedly. In just a moment, the members of the two teams on the open ground took out their respective weapons and looked at the depths of the forest with vigilance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Fan Shi and Chen Fu didn't have to wait for too long. They saw a group of people slowly walking out from the depths of the forest. At a glance, there were about 40 to 50 people, and the leaders were Zhong Xinya and Zheng Yi. With so many people appearing all of a sudden, Fan Shi and Chen Sheng's expressions changed slightly. They didn't expect that the teams from the middle and low-level cities would actually start to form an alliance. Pretty smart. You actually managed to form an alliance with the other low-level cities. However, to us, the teams from the low-level cities are just a motley crew. What's the use even if you gather more people? You're just a group of cannon fodders sent to die. Chen Fu recovered from his shock and said indifferently, ants can kill an elephant with enough strength. No matter how weak the strength is, as long as they gather together, they can still display a powerful strength. Chen Fu, so what if you're from a high-level city? Do you think you'll definitely win against us? Zhong Xinya said coldly. It's not that we'll definitely win, but you'll definitely die. All of you, go to hell. Fan Shi, there's no need to hold back. Kill all of these guys. When the time comes, we'll split the Chenkuan bag. As he spoke, Chen Fu took the lead and pulled out a blood-red broadsword from his Chenkuan bag. He stomped his feet on the ground and his whole body flew directly toward Zhong Xinya. I don't need you to tell me. Fan Shi grinned and also pulled out a weapon from his Chenkuan bag. It was a huge meteor hammer. Not to be outdone, he followed behind Chen Fu and rushed toward Zhong Xinya's group. Zhong Xinya and Zheng Yi also didn't expect that Chen Fu and Fan Shi would actually directly attack as soon as they arrived. Their faces couldn't help but change. Young Master Zheng, I'll leave Fan Shi to you. Huia and I will deal with Chen Fu. Zhong Xinya gritted her teeth and hurriedly instructed Zheng Yi. Then, she led Zhong Huia to fight against Chen Fu. Zheng Yi nodded slightly and directly rushed toward Fan Shi. Boom. In just an instant, the battle was on the verge of breaking out. The team led by Fan Shi and Chen Fu clashed with the team led by Zhong Xinya in the blink of an eye. For a moment, the sound of clashing metal resounded throughout the dense forest. The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing filled the entire open space, crisp and clear. You guys overestimate yourselves. Die. Looking at Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huia who were rushing toward him, Chen Fu revealed a sinister smile. He clenched his right hand and the huge blood-red broadsword with a pungent smell slashed toward Zhong Xinya's neck. Chen Fu could tell at a glance that Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huia were weaker than him. One was at the advanced Heavenly King stage, while the other was only at the initial Heavenly King stage. Such strength posed no threat to him at all. Therefore, he was very confident that this attack would definitely be able to kill the two sisters in front of him. Facing the huge blood-red broadsword that was slashing toward them, Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huia were not flustered at all. Both of them took out similar blue long swords from their cosmos bags. Then, both of them held the long swords in their left and right hands and shouted in unison, left and right combination. As soon as the shout came out, the auras of the two women suddenly rose, and they actually rose to a level comparable to the peak of the Heavenly King stage. Boom! The two blue long swords struck out at the same time and directly struck the blood-red broadsword that was rushing toward them. Unexpectedly, the powerful blood-red broadsword was directly sent flying. Chen Fu's pupils shrank. He didn't expect the two ladies' auras to suddenly rise to the level of complete Heavenly King stage. Taking a step in the void, Chen Fu easily caught the blood-red broadsword and said with a frown, after the two of them joined forces, their strength actually rose to the level of complete Heavenly King stage. What kind of secret technique is this? This secret technique is called left and right combination. It can forcibly gather the origin energy of two people at one point, greatly increasing their combined strength. Although one of us is at the advanced Heavenly King stage, and the other is at the initial Heavenly King stage, under the enhancement of this secret technique, our strength is no weaker than yours at all. I'm afraid you can't defeat us right now. Under the effect of the left and right combination secret technique, Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huiya spoke in the same way as if they were the same person speaking. Can't do it. You think too highly of yourselves. A secret technique is a secret technique after all. There must be a time limit. I can buy time. When the secret technique's time is up, let's see if you're still a match for me. Watch out for my broadsword. Chen Fu's eyes were cold, and the corner of his mouth revealed a sinister smile. After saying this, he directly raised the blood-red broadsword and began to fight with the two sisters again. He intended to buy time with the two sisters. When the effect of the left and right combination secret technique was over, the two sisters' alliance would collapse. Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huiya's expressions changed slightly when they heard this. Obviously, Chen Fu was right about the flaw of the left and right combination secret technique. This secret technique indeed had a time limit. Once the time limit was up, the secret technique would automatically disappear, and the two sisters would fall into a weakened state for a period of time. Second sister, we have to go all out in this battle. Otherwise, we'll all die here, Zhong Xinya said to Zhong Huiya, who was beside her cautiously. Zhong Huiya nodded, understanding the seriousness of the matter. Immediately after, the two sisters pounced on Chen Fu again, their attacks becoming sharper and fiercer. Zhuowen, who was mixed in the team, also saw the left and right combination secret technique used by Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huiya. His eyes suddenly burst with a glimmer of light. This kind of secret technique was extremely rare. Even Zhuowen began to feel a little tempted. This kind of secret technique that required the cooperation of two people was not very useful to Zhuowen, but it was extremely useful to Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying, who were weaker. After all, the battle for the Vitality Tower was not a one-person battle, but a battle between teams. With Zhuowen's current strength and promotion speed, the gap between Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying would definitely widen. Moreover, the opponents he would have to face would also become stronger. Therefore, Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying were destined to be a burden to Zhuowen. However, with this secret technique, the gap between Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying and Zhuowen would not be so obvious. If there's a chance, it's best to exchange for this secret technique from Zhong Xinya. This secret technique is really useful to Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying. Zhuowen dealt with the opponents in front of him somewhat perfunctorily, secretly calculating in his heart. What Zhuowen did not notice was that on the other side, Zheng Yi, who was fighting with Fan Shi, glanced at Zhuowen's location from the corner of his eyes. And whether it was intentional or not, Zheng Yi seemed to be deliberately leading Fan Shi to Zhuowen's direction. Chapter 380. Killing with a borrowed knife. I never thought that a guy from a middle-grade city like you would actually be able to cultivate to the full-circle Heavenly King stage. This is rather rare. However, aren't you a little too weak? Don't tell me that you only know how to dodge. In the air, Fan Shi laughed wantonly as he swung his meteor hammer towards Zheng Yi. The powerful force almost caused the air to whistle. Zheng Yi's weapon was a rather large green spear. Zheng Yi raised his hands and blocked the meteor hammer that was flying towards him. However, the impact of the collision between the meteor hammer and the spear caused Zheng Yi to retreat continuously. As he retreated, Zheng Yi's feet lightly stepped on the ground and he instantly deviated from his original direction. Instead, he retreated towards the battle group that Zhuowen was in. When he was less than 50 meters away from Zhuowen, Zheng Yi circulated his yuan power and naturally stopped his body. He stared coldly at Fan Shi in front of him and said coldly, Green Dragon City can be considered a high-grade city. As a genius of Green Dragon City, is this all you have? When Fan Shi heard this, his eyes narrowed as he shouted with some anger, what a reckless fellow. You actually dare to speak such arrogant words even when you are about to die. Today, I will completely cripple you. As he spoke, Fan Shi raised the pair of meteor hammers in his hands. His chest suddenly puffed up as the surrounding yuan power was sucked into his body. Immediately, the surging yuan power that was sucked into his body passed through Fan Shi's arms and poured into the meteor hammers in his hands. In an instant, the meteor hammers emitted an extremely dazzling light. Exploding meteor hammers. Go to hell for me. The meteor hammers in Fan Shi's hands emitted an extremely dazzling light. It was as bright and beautiful as a meteor falling from the night sky. When the light reached its peak, Fan Shi's arm muscles swelled up as a bull-like breath gushed out from his nostrils. Then, he swung the hammers fiercely towards Zheng Yi, who was not far away. The two meteor hammers were like two huge meteors. They carried a power that seemed to be able to tear through space as they hurtled towards Zheng Yi. The surrounding air pressure became extremely terrifying at this moment. The ground even began to crack under the pressure. It could be seen that the power of the exploding meteor hammers was astonishing. A solemn expression surfaced on Zheng Yi's face as he stared at the imposing meteor hammer. He did not expect that Fan Shi would actually have such a trump card up his sleeve. The might of this exploding meteor hammer had greatly exceeded his expectations. It was obvious that it was an extremely powerful heavenly tier armor skill. If he were to be struck by this attack, even if he did not die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. Glancing sideways at Zhuo Wen, who was tens of meters behind him, unaware of the attack, Zheng Yi's face instantly turned cold. He twisted his feet in midair, and his entire body changed direction in a strange posture, just in time to dodge the exploding meteor hammer that was coming straight at him. Naturally, the trajectory of the exploding meteor hammer did not change. After being dodged by Zheng Yi, it continued on its original trajectory, heading straight for Zhuowen. Kid, you're dead for sure this time. I really want to see what your expression will be like before you die. Looking at the meteor hammer that was whistling towards Zhuowen, Zheng Yi's face revealed a perverted smile as he whispered coldly. Boom! Boom! The loud noise caused by the meteor hammer immediately attracted the attention of Zhuowen and the other martial warriors around him. When the other martial warriors saw the meteor hammer, their faces immediately revealed a trace of fear. Oh my god! This is the meteor hammer of the Green Dragon City's captain, Fan Shi. Looking at the power on the surface of the meteor hammer, it is obvious that he has used a powerful armor skill. This is the full strength attack of a perfect Heavenly King stage powerhouse. We can't stop it at all. Run, run, staying here is simply courting death. Some of the martial warriors who were fighting closer to Zhuowen, after seeing the meteor hammer flying towards them, fled in all directions like monkeys scattering when the tree falls. However, the meteor hammer's speed was too fast, and in the blink of an eye, it had arrived above these people. The moment the meteor hammer landed on the ground, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. Soon, he saw Zheng Yi, who was sneering a few dozen meters away. It seemed that the meteor hammer that was heading towards him was not a coincidence. It was very likely that Zheng Yi had deliberately created a method to kill him with a borrowed knife. Just as this thought flashed across Zhuowen's mind, the huge meteor hammer finally smashed heavily into a place not far from him. Following that, a powerful pressure accompanied by a huge amount of yuan power surged out from the meteor hammer in an instant. With the meteor hammer as the epicenter, the berserk energy quickly spread out in all directions, enveloping an area of nearly 10 feet. Boom! 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 An earth-shattering explosion suddenly resounded in the entire open space, followed by a dazzling ball of light that burst out in the open space. Then, extremely shrill screams rose and fell one after another, as if ghosts were wailing and wolves were howling. However, the screams did not last for long before they completely stopped. Obviously, the owners of the screams had already died. Zhuowen. In a battle group far away from the meteor hammer explosion, Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuiying, who were fighting with other martial warriors, were also attracted by the violent explosion. When they saw Zhuowen's figure completely enveloped by the power of the meteor hammer, they immediately widened their eyes and couldn't help but roar out in anger. Of course, the violent explosion also alarmed the attention of all the martial artists in the open space, so these martial artists stopped fighting one after another. Instead, they focused their gazes on the location of the explosion. Their faces were filled with fear. The power of Fan Shi's move was too great, causing many weaker martial artists to tremble in their hearts. Whoosh! The battle between the sisters Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huia and Chen Fu also stopped because of this. They also focused their eyes on the location of the explosion. Their eyes were filled with shock, especially Zhong Huia, who even revealed a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. If she remembered correctly, the area of the explosion seemed to be near Zhuoan. She was afraid that the annoying guy had already been completely killed by the destructive power of the explosion just now. Fan Shi's strength is still above my expectations. The power of this exploding meteor hammer is really terrifying. I'm afraid that if I were to face it head-on, even if I don't die, I would be seriously injured. Holding the blood-red broadsword in his hand, Chen Fu said to himself with fear in his eyes. Huff! At this moment, Fan Shi's chest was heaving up and down violently. His breathing had also become rather heavy. Clearly, the exploding meteor hammer that he had just used was quite a burden on him. Nearly half of the yuan power in his body had been consumed. Damn it! I actually didn't hit this guy. Fan Shi also saw Zheng Yi, who had dodged the exploding meteor hammer, and could not help but curse in a low voice. After withdrawing his gaze, Zheng Yi shifted his gaze to Fan Shi, who was panting a short distance away. From the way he saw it, Zhuo Wen would definitely die under Fan Shi's exploding meteor hammer. Therefore, he naturally placed all his attention on Fan Shi. As expected of a heaven-rank armor skill, the power it can unleash is actually so strong. However, now that you have lost your weapon, I'm afraid that your attack power has been greatly reduced. Do you think that you are still a match for me now? Zhang Yi sneered as the corner of his mouth curled into an arc. Hearing this, Fan Shi's face suddenly became gloomy. He coldly snorted and said, "With your little strength, I can defeat you even without a weapon. Die." With a loud cry, Fan Shi's foot suddenly stomped on the ground. The enormous strength caused the ground to crack. Soon after, Fan Shi's entire body transformed into an illusory black shadow that rushed directly towards Zheng Yi. "Do you really think that's all I have? If it weren't for the fact that I wanted to borrow a knife to kill someone, do you think that I would have dodged you?" Zheng Yi's mouth parted as he quietly muttered in his heart. Not to be outdone, he held the green long spear and instantly approached Fan Shi. Subsequently, he clenched his right hand tightly, and a flood of yuan power immediately poured out. The green long spear in his hand had more than doubled in size. Bang! Zheng Yi's right hand pulled inwards, and the green long spear was violently thrown out. It was like a huge door that directly swung at Fan Shi's waist. A warning sign rose in Fan Shi's heart. He coldly snorted, and his right hand instantly stretched out in a claw shape in an attempt to grab the green long spear in his hand. Clang! The sound of metal clashing suddenly rang out. Fan Shi's right hand actually met Zheng Yi's green long spear head-on. Moreover, he had directly blocked it. However, Zheng Yi's face was filled with ridicule. Immediately, the 5 fingers of his right hand suddenly moved, and the green long spear in his hand suddenly rotated. At the same time, waves of green energy escaped from the long spear, like a rain of needles, and shot toward Fan Shi without any warning. Fan Shi's expression changed drastically. He did not expect Zheng Yi to actually hide such a sinister move. He was caught off guard and was immediately bombarded by many green energy. Under the pain, Fan Shi involuntarily let go of the green long spear in his hand. "I'm really sorry. It seems that I have won the battle between us by a little, and you have become the final loser. So, go to hell." Zheng Yi laughed wantonly. His hand's movement was not slow. The green long spear was like a poisonous snake, approaching Fan Shi at a tricky angle in an instant, and violently swung at the latter's waist. Bang! The powerful force immediately caused Fan Shi to involuntarily fly backward. He spat out a mouthful of blood in midair, and the direction that Fan Shi flew backward was the explosion area that the exploding meteor hammer had just bombarded. At this time, there was still a thick smoke and dust in the explosion area that had not dissipated. However, when Fan Shi's body was about to fly into the explosion area, the former's body strangely stopped in midair, as if it had hit a hard wall. "Were you the one who hit the meteor hammer just now?" Just when everyone was wondering about Fan Shi's situation at this time, a rather clear voice suddenly came slowly from the smoke and dust. Then, a somewhat vague figure gradually walked out of the smoke and dust. At this time, Fan Shi's condition was not good. He was bleeding from his 7 orifices and was dying. Zheng Yi's attack just now was too ruthless. He did not intend to let Fan Shi live at all. Fan Shi was not far from death at this time. However, he still struggled to raise his head to look at the figure behind him. He knew that this figure had indirectly saved his life. After all, with his current severe injuries, if he fell directly to the ground, there was an 80% chance that he would die immediately. Chapter 381. Zheng Yi's fear. Looking at Fan Shi, who was already bleeding from all 7 orifices and on the verge of death, Zhuo Wen knew that the latter was not far from death. This was because the instant he came into contact with Fan Shi's body, Zhuo Wen discovered that many of the vital channels in the latter's body had already been brutally destroyed by a wave of Yuan power. The chances of survival were extremely slim. Fan Shi's lips squirmed a few times. Finally, his head tilted and he stopped breathing. Looking at the lifeless Fan Shi in his hand, Zhuo Wen sighed and shook his head. He released his right hand and placed Fan Shi's body on the ground. Then, he looked coldly at Zheng Yi, who was standing not far away, stunned. At this moment, the entire space was deathly silent. Everyone stared at the nearby Zhuo Wen in disbelief. He was completely unscathed. They remembered very clearly that Fan Shi's exploding meteor hammer had directly hit the vicinity of this youth. That exploding meteor hammer was extremely powerful, enough to directly injure a cultivator at the peak of the Heavenly King stage, but this seemingly ordinary youth in front of them had actually walked out of the explosion unscathed. This was too inconceivable. Who the hell is this guy? Even I don't dare to take Fan Shi's exploding meteor hammer head on. This kid was hit by such an attack and is unscathed. This. Chen Fu's pupils shrank to the size of needles as he involuntarily cried out. Zhong Xinya and her sister, who were standing not far away from Chen Fu, looked as if they had seen a ghost. They stared blankly at the young man, whose face had been extremely calm since the beginning. Their cherry lips parted slightly, but they did not know what to say. Why is this guy so strange? He didn't die under such a powerful attack. This is too. The most surprised person was Zhong Huia. She stared straight at Zhuo Wen and whispered to herself. Deng deng deng. Zhuo Wen looked indifferently at Zheng Yi, who had yet to recover from his shock. He slowly walked towards the latter and said indifferently, Zheng Yi, do you think I don't know what you've done? Fan Shi's attack just now was purposely created by you to kill with a borrowed knife. You used it pretty well, but... As he spoke, Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes and continued, I, Zhuo Wen, believe that there is no enmity between us. Why are you targeting me? At this time, Zheng Yi also recovered from his absent-mindedness. He snorted coldly and said, your attitude made me very unhappy. You, a lowly person from a low-level city, dare to put on airs in front of me, Zheng Yi? You're simply courting death. Hee. Don't think that just because you survived Fan Shi's exploding meteor hammer, you are really powerful. In my opinion, you are still unable to withstand a single blow. As he spoke, Zheng Yi's lips curled into a sinister grin. He stomped his foot and the green spear in his hand emitted a green light. He directly pierced it towards Zhuo Wen. In his opinion, the reason why Zhuo Wen didn't die under Fan Shi's exploding meteor hammer was probably because he was lucky. After all, Zhuo Wen was only a martial artist from a low-level city. A low-level city was almost at the bottom of Muqin County, so how could it possibly cultivate a powerful martial artist? To be able to survive the bombardment of the exploding meteor hammer, it seems that your luck is really good. But now that I have made my move, your good luck will come to an end. You are dead meat. Zhang Yi sneered wantonly in mid-air. Oh. So in your opinion, it was only luck that I was able to survive the exploding meteor hammer. The corners of Zhuo Wen's mouth curled into a smile as he uttered such a brainless sentence. His skin began to slowly turn into a glazed color, and a luster flowed on the surface of his body like a meteor. In an instant, Zhang Yi's green spear pierced through the air like lightning. Before anyone could react, the sharp tip of the spear directly pierced into Zhuo Wen's chest. A sneer appeared at the corners of Zhang Yi's mouth. Zhuowen in front of him didn't dodge. In Zheng Yi's opinion, he was simply frightened. Therefore, the moment the spear pierced into Zhuowen's chest, Zheng Yi's eyes were full of disdain. As expected, he was just a lowly person from a low-level city. He was simply unable to withstand a single blow. Ding! However, the sneer on Zheng Yi's face quickly froze. This was because he realized that the moment the green spear pierced into Zhuowen's chest, it seemed to have pierced into an extremely hard rock. It actually emitted a sound of metal clashing. Subsequently, Zheng Yi was shocked to discover that the green spear was unable to move an inch in front of Zhuowen's chest. What made him even more shocked was that the green spear didn't even break through Zhuowen's skin. How is this possible? My clear moon spear is a high-level middle-level spiritual treasure. It has almost reached the point where it can cut through metal like mud. How can it not even break through his physical defense? How can this guy's body be so hard? Is he still human? The moment the sound of metal clashing rang out, Zheng Yi's pupils shrank to the size of needles. The depths of his eyes were already filled with horror. Is this all you've got? Are you sure you want to kill me? Standing quietly in the same spot, Zhuowen stared at Zheng Yi indifferently and said word by word. Damn it! You can go to hell for me. Clear moon spear, 10,000 spears return to 1. Go to hell! Zheng Yi roared. His eyes were filled with madness. In an instant, his hands formed a few seals. The green spear in his hand suddenly burst out with a dazzling green light. Immediately, the green light split into countless green spears that floated around Zheng Yi. Then, Zheng Yi pinched the air with his right hand, and the countless spears around him suddenly gathered together, and finally turned into a huge green spear that was dozens of feet long. The strong pressure almost made the weaker cultivators in the open space breathless, and they all retreated far away. Let's see if you can survive this time. Zheng Yi laughed crazily. The huge green spear above his head suddenly pierced through the void and directly shot towards Zhuowen. The whistling sound of the air resounded in the open space. Zheng Yi, what are you doing? Zhuowen is a member of our team. Do you want to kill him? Looking at the huge green spear, Zhong Xinya, who was watching from the side, finally couldn't help but shout. Shut up. This Zhuowen is not a good person. I suspect that this bastard is likely a spy from Green Dragon City and Jiayu City. I'm doing this for the sake of our team. Zhang Yi did not care about Zhuowen at all. His eyes were filled with killing intent. At this moment, Zhuowen actually gave him a faint sense of threat. This feeling made him feel very uncomfortable. Moreover, Zhuowen's tough body also surprised him. At the same time, it made his killing intent even more intense. In the depths of his killing intent, there was a trace of greed. Zhuowen's body was so hard that it was comparable to a high-grade middle-grade spirit treasure. It was obvious that he had practiced an extremely powerful body refining technique. If he could also obtain this body refining technique, his strength was likely to rise to a higher level, and this battle for the Essence Chi Tower would give him another layer of hope. Thinking of this, Zhang Yi's right hand formed a seal. He directly controlled the huge green spear and pierced down from above Zhuowen's head. I want to see if your body is hard or my 10,000 spears return to 1 is hard. Zhang Yi's mouth was full of a sneer. After witnessing Zhuowen's powerful physical body, not only was Zheng Yi not afraid, but his killing intent had become even more intense. This outcome surprised Zhuowen quite a bit. At the same time, it also caused the killing intent in Zhuowen's heart to surge. You're courting death. Facing the huge green spear in the sky, Zhuowen only stretched out his right hand. Then, the huge green spear directly bombarded Zhuowen's right palm. Boom! The huge impact set off cyclones in the open space. The strong cyclones created a huge pressure, causing the entire open space to become a lot heavier. So powerful. The might of Zheng Yi's 10,000 spears returned to 1 is actually stronger than Fan Shi's exploding meteor hammer. That young man's realm doesn't seem high, but his body is comparable to a high-grade mid-grade soul treasure. How amazing. I just don't know if he can block Zheng Yi's 10,000 spears return to 1. At the moment when the huge green spear collided with Zhuowen, many warriors couldn't help but discuss. However, their discussion didn't last for long. One by one, they stared at the center of the open space where the huge green spear was. An incredible scene suddenly appeared in front of their eyes. They saw that Zhuowen had actually grabbed the huge green spear that was dozens of feet long with his bare hands. What was even more incredible was that Zhuowen's right hand only lightly squeezed. Then, there was a clear cracking sound. Then, there were traces of cracks on the surface of the huge green spear. Bang! The cracks continued to spread. In the blink of an eye, they covered the entire body of the huge green spear. Then, the huge green spear collapsed inch by inch, turning into traces of green powder that scattered on the ground. Hooah! An uproar instantly rose from the surroundings of the empty space. Everyone stared blankly at the young man in the center of the empty space, who was under the countless green brilliance. They were truly unable to imagine that such a powerful giant green spear was actually caught by the young man in front of them with his bare hands. Furthermore, he had directly crushed it into powder. What kind of strength did he need to do that? Impossible. How can your body be so hard that even the 10,000 spear unification can't break it? You're just a lowly person from a low-level city. How can you have such great strength? This is absolutely impossible. Zhang Yi spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at his huge green spear that had been crushed into powder in a daze. He muttered to himself in a somewhat deranged manner. Whoosh! At the same time, Zhuowen moved at this moment. He instantly approached Zhang Yi and lifted him up with his right hand. Then, he said indifferently, "Originally, I had no enmity with you, but you provoked me for no reason. So, don't blame me for courting death." Feeling the force around his neck, Zhang Yi finally came to his senses. He looked at Zhuowen in horror. For the first time, he felt that death was so close to him. "Don't kill me. You can't blame me for this. It's that bitch Zhonghuya who asked me to deal with you. You can't blame me for this." Feeling the cold killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes, Zhang Yi exposed Zhonghuya without hiding anything. Chapter 382. Left and right together. Zhang Yi. "Don't slander me. When did I say you were going to deal with Zhuowen?" Zhonghuya quickly retorted with a pale face. Zhuowen's performance just now was too terrifying. He was able to defeat the full-strength attack of a complete Heavenly King Realm cultivator with his bare hands. His strength was definitely at the level of a half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Such an expert was not someone they could fight against. Therefore, Zhonghui's heart was filled with regret. She regretted finding Zhang Yi and offending Zhuowen. After all, she did not expect Zhuowen, who was born in a low-level city, to be so strong. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and glanced at Zhonghuia, who was not far away. He had a rough idea of what had happened. Before they set off, Zhang Yi and Zhonghuia had been whispering to each other. The content of their conversation was probably about how to set him up. Crack! Zhuowen ignored Zhang Yi, who was still struggling in his hand. He exerted some force with his right hand, and the crisp sound of bones breaking resounded in the open space. Then, Zhang Yi's head was twisted in a strange way, and he was no longer breathing. Everyone in the open space was silent. They did not expect the young man in front of them to be so ruthless. He actually killed Zhang Yi with just one move. Seeing a complete Heavenly King Realm cultivator being killed so easily by Zhuowen, everyone in the open space could not help but tremble. They looked at Zhuowen with horror in their eyes. Zhonghui's delicate body began to tremble, especially when she saw Zhang Yi's corpse. Her eyes were filled with horror. Plop! The fear of death made Zhonghuia kneel down. She lowered her head and begged, "Zhuowen, I was wrong. I didn't find Zhang Yi to kill you. I just wanted to teach you a lesson. Zhang Yi didn't like you, so he decided to take advantage of the chaos to set you up." Zhuowen did not expect Zhonghuia to admit it so directly. He could not help but be stunned. Zhong Xinya looked at Zhuowen with a complicated expression and said, "Zhuowen, although Han Ya is a little unruly, she will never take the initiative to harm others. Although she is wrong, the one who wants to kill you is Zhang Yi. I hope you can forgive her and let her go." Zhong Xinya's tone was extremely cautious. She could not see through Zhuowen. Judging from his performance just now, Zhuowen's strength was definitely far beyond everyone here. Even if she, Zhong Huiya, and Chen Fu joined forces, they might not be able to defeat Zhuowen. Therefore, she lowered her stance. If it wasn't for the fact that I've cultivated a body refinement technique, I would have been seriously injured or even killed. This is a matter of life and death. Do you think I will just let it go like this? Looking at Zhong Xinya in front of him, Zhuowen's eyes were slightly displeased. He was plotted against, and Zhong Xinya wanted to end it like this. That was too easy. Originally, Zhuowen was quite impressed by Zhong Xinya's means. Now, after seeing Zhong Xinya's attitude, Zhuowen's favorable impression of her completely disappeared. Then what do you want? With your strength, you shouldn't be interested in some of our things, right? Zhong Xinya clenched her teeth and said, I won't force you. As long as you hand over the secret method of left and right combination, I will let bygones be bygones. Zhuowen said lightly. He had already noticed the secret method of left and right combination of Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huiya. Now that he had an excuse, he naturally did not hesitate to mention it. Hearing this, Zhong Xinya's pretty face turned pale, but after seeing Zhong Huiya trembling beside her, she sighed slightly. She took out a jade slip from her Qiankuan bag, flicked her finger, and handed the jade slip to Zhuowen. She said with a cold face, this jade slip records the secret method of left and right combination. You can check it. Ignoring Zhong Xinya's expression, Zhuowen took the jade slip naturally. He used his mental power to check the jade slip. After confirming that the jade slip indeed recorded the secret method of left and right combination, Zhuowen nodded slightly and said, it is indeed the secret method of left and right combination. Since you are so sincere, I will not pursue the matter of murdering me, until we meet again. With that, Zhuowen directly led Jiu Xin and Hu Wuying past the crowd. After witnessing Zhuowen's strength, the cultivators in the dense forest did not dare to block Zhuowen's path. They all made way for him. After all, this was a ruthless person who could single-handedly defeat a high-grade spirit artifact. Such a person was not someone they could provoke. Looking at the departing figure, Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huiya's beautiful eyes were extremely complicated. They never thought that Zhuowen, who came from a low-grade city, would be so strong. This was simply illogical. Is this Zhuowen really from a low-grade city? How can he be so strong? I'm afraid his strength is comparable to a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Zhong Xinya sighed with emotion as she bit her lower lip. Since Zhuowen had relied on his physical body to withstand the attacks from beginning to end, he did not release the aura of a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator at all. Therefore, Zhong Xinya and the others had no idea what cultivation realm Zhuowen was currently at. They could only guess that Zhuowen's strength was comparable to a half-step ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Chen Fu and the others, who were originally on tenterhooks, immediately smiled in relief when they saw that Zhuowen had no intention of standing up for Zhong Xinya and the others. The scene of Zhuowen killing Zheng Yi was still deeply engraved in his mind. Zheng Yi's strength was not inferior to his. In fact, Zheng Yi was even stronger than him. After all, even Fan Shi had been defeated by Zheng Yi. Therefore, Zheng Yi's strength could only be higher than his. However, such an expert, who was slightly stronger than him, was like a little chick in front of Zhuowen. He could not resist at all. This naturally made Chen Fu extremely fearful of Zhuowen. He was afraid that Zhuowen would cause trouble for him. How amazing! This Zhuowen is clearly from a low-grade city, but his strength is far beyond the complete Heavenly King realm. I'm afraid his strength has already reached the half-step Ultimate Emperor realm. Originally, you had the opportunity to enter the Holy City directly by relying on such an expert. However, it seems like you've wasted that opportunity. Chen Fu carried his blood-red broadsword and looked at Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huiya with a mocking smile. When Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huiya heard this, their pretty faces turned pale. Zhong Huiya lowered her head sadly, while Zhong Xinya looked at Chen Fu angrily and said, "Chen Fu, what do you mean? Are you planning to stop us from entering the Holy City?" Hee. Right now, the two teams in the Holy City, Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City, are extremely strong. Now, with the addition of that strange Zhuowen, I'm afraid that the control center of this sandstone island is not something we can get our hands on. Therefore, I, Chen Fu, might as well take some benefits from you and directly teleport out of the Origin Chi Tower. Chen Fu clenched his blood-red broadsword tightly in his right hand and shouted, "Brothers, don't be polite. Take these guys down. Right now, they're just a bunch of mobs." As Chen Fu spoke, he raised his blood-red broadsword and directly attacked Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huia. The 7 or 8 people under him were not to be outdone. They fought bravely, not giving the other cultivators any chance to breathe. "Let's go." Zhong Xinya's pretty face changed slightly. She directly took Zhong Huia, who was a little dazed, and fled into the depths of the jungle. She knew that with Zhang Yi's death and the left and right combination secret technique's time limit, they were no match for Chen Fu and the others. Therefore, she did not hesitate to retreat directly. "You're running pretty fast." Looking at Zhong Xinya and Zhong Huia who were quickly disappearing, Chen Fu did not intend to chase after them. Instead, he helped his team members deal with the other cultivators. After collecting the cultivators' Chenkuan bags, Chen Fu once again took a deep look at the holy city in the distance. He sighed and simply erased the words of Jiayu City on the token. Whoosh! A beam of light suddenly enveloped the people of Jiayu City, and then directly teleported them out of the Origin Chi Tower. Of course, the price was that they directly lost the qualification to participate in the Origin Chi Tower battle. Zhuowen and the other 2 walked slowly on a lush, tree-lined path. From time to time, other members of the vestigial clan would pass by them and look at them curiously. Soon after, they withdrew their gazes with a trace of doubt. After all, Zhuowen and the other 2's attire was somewhat incompatible with the vestigial clans, so the rate of them turning their heads was extremely high. However, Zhuowen and the other 2 did not care about the gazes of these vestigial clan members. "Zhuowen, why did you ask Zhong Xinya to take out the left and right combination secret technique? It doesn't seem to be of any use to you, right?" On the way, Ji Yuxin asked Zhuowen rather doubtfully. "This secret technique is indeed of no use to me, but it's of great use to the 2 of you. The left and right combination secret technique is a combination secret technique that can temporarily fuse the yuan energies of 2 people on a common point. Thus, the 2 of them can share their yuan energies and indirectly increase the density of their yuan energies. With this secret technique, the strength of the 2 of you will be able to rise to another level," Zhuowen said with a smile. Hearing this, Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying could not help but be taken aback. They did not expect that Zhuowen wanted the left and right combination secret technique for the 2 of them. This made the 2 of them feel rather touched, and at the same time, a trace of guilt. It seemed that from the beginning, the 2 of them were like burdens by Zhuowen's side. "Zhuowen, it's all our fault for being too weak and always being a burden to you," Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying said rather shamefully. "Don't say that. You are also a part of my team. Since I am your captain, I will naturally not abandon you at will. Take this left and right combination secret technique and practice it well. If you learn it, the strength of the 2 of you combined will be enough to reach the strength of the initial Heavenly King stage. It will be more than enough to protect yourselves." Zhuowen flicked his finger and handed the jade slip to Ji Yuxin with a smile. Chapter 383. 30,000 riches. A towering city gate stood not far in front of them. An ancient aura slowly emanated from the city gate, as if it was telling of its ancient history and distant experiences. This huge city gate was the Holy City Gate. If one wanted to enter the Holy City, they had to pass the test of the Holy City Gate. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to enter at all. A huge stream of people lined up in front of the city gate, waiting to enter the Holy City. Most of these people were powerful warriors with bulging muscles. Of course, there was also a small portion of them who were frail and wealthy merchants. These merchants were dressed extravagantly and had arrogant gazes. A trace of disdain flashed in their eyes, especially when they looked at the warriors dressed in ordinary clothes around them. At the same time, on both sides of the city gate, there were 2 warriors in silver armor. The 2 warriors were extremely tall and huge. Their muscles were bulging in an exaggerated arc. especially the silver badges on the chest of the two guards. It was obvious that the two guards were silver-tier warriors that should not be trifled with. At the end of the line, 3 slender figures were quietly lining up. These 3 were Zhuowen and the other 2 who were rushing to the holy city. At this time, they were not in a hurry to enter the holy city. Instead, they were quietly waiting for the line to advance. Priest Choshire had already told them that the holy city was not a place that anyone could enter. Only powerful warriors or rich people were qualified to enter the holy city. If they tried to force their way in, they would be repelled by the holy city's power. Although Zhuowen did not know how powerful the holy city's power was, he remembered that the former lord of the holy city, Alice, was a legendary warrior with a strength of 1,000,000 pounds. His strength was comparable to the powerful ultimate emperor realm. This so-called holy city's power was not to be trifled with, so he gave up on the idea of forcing his way in. The holy city is indeed the core of the entire Sandstone Island. The flow of people is so terrifying. Compared to the Qingshui tribe, the difference is like the difference between an ant and an elephant. Ji Yuxin couldn't help but exclaim as she looked at the terrifying flow of people around them. Zhuowen and Hu Wuiying also nodded in agreement. The prosperity of the holy city was not inferior to the super-cities of Muqin Prefecture. To be able to build such a magnificent city on a barren island like the Sandstone Island, these lost clans were quite impressive. The strange attire of Zhuowen and the other 2, as well as their seemingly thin and weak physique, undoubtedly became the focus of the other people in the group. Many people looked at Zhuowen and the other 2 with strange gazes. Their gazes contained a variety of emotions, such as doubt, curiosity, disdain, and so on. Zhuowen's group of 3 paid no heed to the surrounding crowd's attitude. After all, they were not natives of Sandstone Island. Naturally, they wouldn't care about these people's gazes and attitudes. Youngsters, are the 3 of you planning to enter the holy city? Suddenly, a simple and honest voice came from behind Zhuowen's group. Turning their heads, they saw a middle-aged man about 40 years old, with a sturdy body and a rather simple and honest face looking at Zhuowen and the others with some worry. Yes. Is there a problem? Zhuowen nodded subconsciously. The middle-aged man shook his head and said kindly, "This should be the first time the 3 of you are entering the holy city. You should know that not everyone is qualified to enter the holy city. You must pass a strength test before you are qualified. Moreover, the minimum requirement is at least 50,000 jin, which is equivalent to a high-grade bronze warrior. You are still too young. I'm afraid you will return disappointed." Zhuowen and the others were startled when they heard this. They never imagined that this simple and honest uncle before them would actually advise them. Perhaps this simple and honest uncle saw that Zhuowen and the others were young and appeared to be too weak to stand up to a gust of wind, so he kindly reminded them. With a slight smile, Zhuowen cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your reminder, big brother. However, we have important matters to attend to when we enter the holy city, so we must enter the holy city this time. As for the strength test, we know what to do." Seeing Zhuowen and the other 2's resolute attitude, the simple and honest uncle also knew that his advice was useless. He secretly shook his head, thinking that when the time came for the strength test, these 3 little guys would know how difficult it would be. Hee hee. 3 brats who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, with your skinny arms and legs, you think you can pass the test and enter the holy city? That's simply a pipe dream. Do you really think that the holy city is your backyard, where you can enter whenever you want? When the time comes and you can't pass the test, you will cry. A sharp mocking voice suddenly sounded. Standing behind the simple and honest uncle was a somewhat impatient fat man. This fat man was rather short and had a big belly. At a glance, one could tell that he didn't have any strength to speak of. However, the clothes on his body were extremely luxurious. His neck and hands were covered in golden jewelry and jewels, making him look like a nouveau riche. Obviously, this short and fat man should be a wealthy merchant who entered the holy city to do business. At the same time, behind the short and fat man were 4 muscular men respectfully. These muscular men all had green badges on their bodies. Obviously, they were all bronze warriors with great strength. Many people around looked at the fat man with fear. On the Sandstone Island, some wealthy merchants had a much higher status than ordinary warriors. Of course, they were only ordinary warriors. After all, the Bronze Warriors were a relatively lower class of people on the Sandstone Island. It was natural for wealthy merchants to have a higher status than Bronze Warriors. However, if it was a Silver Warrior, then the status of the Silver Warriors was not something that the wealthy merchants could compare to. This was because the number of Silver Warriors was too small. Every warrior whose strength reached the silver level was basically a genius with extraordinary talent. After entering the Holy City, they would basically be able to obtain a very high status and treatment. In front of such a strong person, the wealthy merchants were simply a joke. Therefore, this short and fat man was only arrogant in front of the Bronze Warriors. In front of the Silver Warriors, he was more respectful than anyone else. Ji Yushin was a little impatient. She glared at the short and fat man and said, "You three brats are still not convinced. Do you want to fight?" The short and fat man's chubby face was full of a mocking smile as he said loudly in a very annoying manner. Squinting his eyes, Zhuowen grabbed Ji Yushin, who was a little impulsive, and said indifferently, "It's just a dog barking. There's no need to be so calculative." Hearing this, Ji Yushin regained some of her rationality. She nodded slightly and ignored the pot-bellied rich merchant. Although Zhuowen and the other two did not want to cause more trouble, the short and fat man was not happy. Zhuowen's ridicule just now had completely angered him. In any case, he was a wealthy man. Whether it was his status or wealth, he was much higher than the average Bronze Warrior. Moreover, he was used to the wind and rain. How could he stand Zhuowen's ridicule? "How dare you talk nonsense to me, Cai Sanqian? Teach these three brats a lesson for me." The short and fat man, Cai Sanqian, snorted and said to the four Bronze Warriors behind him. Seeing that things were not going well, the simple and honest man immediately stood in front of Zhuowen and the other two. He hurriedly smiled and said, "So it's Master Cai Sanqian. You are a magnanimous person. You don't have to be so calculative with these three brats. They are also young, so they speak without thinking. I hope you don't lower yourself to their level. Moreover, this is the entrance of the Holy City. The rules forbid private fights." Cai Sanqian squinted his eyes. He also saw that the simple and honest man was also a Bronze Warrior. He rolled his eyes and said, "You also saw that these three people offended me first. If you let the three of them kneel on the ground and apologize to me solemnly, I can let bygones be bygones. How about that?" Hearing this, the simple and honest man's face stiffened. He said again, "Master Cai Sanqian, don't you think you are going too far?" "Going too far? Humph. I am already very merciful that I did not break their legs directly. Now I just want them to kneel and apologize. How is that going too far? Since these three brats don't want to apologize, then don't blame me." Saying this, Cai Sanqian waved his fleshy arm. The four ferocious Bronze Warriors behind him immediately surrounded Zhuowen and the other two people, as well as the simple and honest man. Zhuowen frowned. He did not expect this damn fatty to be so narrow-minded. He actually wanted to teach them a lesson with just a sarcastic remark. At this moment, the rest of the team also noticed the farce. Many of them recognized Cai Sanqian's identity and began to whisper to each other. "Hey! Isn't that Cai Sanqian? This miser has come to the Holy City to do business again. It seems like we are going to make a fortune this time." The three young men seemed to have a conflict with Cai Sanqian. How unlucky. Cai Sanqian is very narrow-minded. He is the kind of person who will seek revenge. It is the three brats' bad luck to have offended such a person. Many warriors around the team looked as if they were watching a good show. They did not intend to step forward to help. Teach these four guys a good lesson. Let them know that some people are not to be trifled with. Cai Sanqian sneered. The four Bronze Warriors immediately pounced on the simple and honest man, Zhuowen, and the other two people, with ferocious smiles on their faces. "The three of you, go quickly. These guys are not people you can fight against. I will help you buy some time." The simple and honest man had a good heart. When he saw the four Bronze Warriors pouncing on them, He hurriedly instructed Zhuowen and the other two people behind him. This gave Zhuowen a good impression of him. Brother, thank you for your kindness. However, we will deal with these 4 small fries. Zhuowen smiled. Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying, who were beside him, stomped their feet on the ground. In an instant, they turned into indiscernible shadows. Bang 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 bang. 4 dull sounds of fists hitting flesh suddenly rang out. Immediately, the 4 bronze warriors who were pouncing on them suddenly froze in mid-air. The ferocious smiles on their faces also froze at this moment. Fart. Fresh blood spurted out from their mouths like a faucet that was not turned on properly. Then, the 4 bronze warriors fell heavily on the ground like dead dogs, their bodies twitching non-stop. Chapter 384. Testis. Gasps could be heard all of a sudden, and the surrounding crowd couldn't help but gasp. Although Cai Sanqian's 4 subordinates were only bronze-ranked warriors, their strength could reach 10 to 20,000 pounds. If the 4 of them worked together, they could probably fight against a bronze-ranked warrior. But now, in the blink of an eye, the 4 bronze warriors were all beaten down without any resistance. Those who could have such strength were at least high-level bronze warriors, and their strength could reach 70 to 80,000 pounds. Am I seeing things? The 4 bronze warriors were dealt with so cleanly and neatly, and they didn't even have the strength to fight back. These 2 young men are too terrifying. They look so thin, but their strength is so strong. The 4 bronze warriors were defeated in the blink of an eye. An uproar suddenly rang out. Immediately, a commotion broke out in the surroundings. Plop. Cai Sanqian's legs trembled, and he fell to the ground. His lips trembled as he looked at Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying, and said, "You. What do you want?" "Let me tell you, I, Cai Sanqian, know a lot of people in the Holy City. If you dare to mess around, you'll have to bear the consequences." Cai Sanqian's heart was already filled with fear. He didn't expect that Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying, who looked so thin and weak, would actually be so strong. In just a few moves, they had beaten down his 4 subordinates. "Take care of your dog. If you provoke us again, I don't know what I'll do," Jiyu Xin said coldly as she glanced at Cai Sanqian, who was scared out of his wits. Then, she returned to Zhuowen's side. Cai Sanqian was so weak that he didn't even have the strength to truss up a chicken. Yes, you're right, I'll take care of my dog." Cai Sanqian was indeed a businessman. The speed at which he changed his attitude made the surrounding people speechless. However, Zhuowen and the other 2 didn't notice the resentment in Cai Sanqian's eyes. He thought to himself, "Damn brat, I'll deal with you after we enter the Holy City." At this moment, the simple and honest uncle was already dumbfounded. He never would have thought that Zhuowen and the other 2, whom he thought to be weak and powerless, actually had such extraordinary strength. After all, to be able to instantly take care of 4 low-level bronze warriors, their strength was at least at the high-level bronze level. He really didn't expect that these 3 young people would be stronger than him at such a young age. It seemed that his worry just now was completely unnecessary. He thought self-deprecatingly and couldn't help but shake his head gently. Zhuowen also saw the self-deprecating expression on the honest uncle's face. Zhuowen had a good impression of this warm-hearted uncle. After thinking for a moment, he took out a white porcelain bottle from his Chenkuan bag and handed it to the honest uncle. "Brother, thank you so much for helping us out just now. This bottle of elixir will help you strengthen your body and has an extremely significant effect on increasing your strength. So, take this as a reward for your help," Zhuowen said with a smile. Originally, the honest uncle didn't want to accept Zhuowen's porcelain bottle. After all, he didn't help at all. However, when he heard that the elixir in the porcelain bottle could increase his strength, his eyes suddenly emitted a glimmer of light. The vestigial tribe's warriors focused on training their bodies and increasing their strength. The elixir that could increase their strength was extremely precious and tempting for warriors. "Thank you, little brother. I, Hu Ming, owe you a favor." The honest uncle took the porcelain bottle in Zhuowen's hand with trembling hands and said gratefully. Zhuowen waved his hand. The elixir in the porcelain bottle was called the health elixir. It was an extremely low-level elixir. When Zhuowen had just crossed over, he relied on the health elixir to train his body and strengthen his body. However, as his strength increased, this elixir became more and more useless. At this time, he didn't feel any heartache to take it out. After the small disturbance just now, the team was still proceeding in an orderly manner. The other members of the team finally stopped looking down on Zhuo Wen and the other two. After all, if Zhuo Wen and the other two were able to defeat 4 low-level bronze warriors so easily, it was obvious that Zhuo Wen and the other two were not weak. They were at least high-level bronze existences. Looking at the awe-inspiring gazes from all around, Zhuo Wen just shrugged. It seemed that the principle of the strong being respected was applicable everywhere. After about half an hour, Zhuo Wen's group was basically at the front of the team. At this time, it was the turn of a young and vigorous man in front of Zhuo Wen to test his strength. You punch at that sacred monument. When the time comes, the sacred monument will analyze the strength in your body. Let me warn you. Only when the strength of more than 50,000 jin are you qualified to enter the holy city. Don't try to fish in troubled waters. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. The 2 silver-ranked warriors guarding the city gate were extremely tall, at least 2 meters tall. They looked at the young man in front of them condescendingly and said in an indifferent voice. The young man responded submissively and hurriedly walked to the huge sacred monument at the side of the city gate. This sacred monument was 10 feet in size. On the surface of the sacred monument, there was a faint golden glow. At a glance, it seemed to be quite dazzling. Looking at the appearance of the sacred monument, Zhuo Wen raised his eyebrows. This was because he realized that this sacred monument was actually quite similar to the sealing monument in the sealed area of the Qingshui tribe. According to priest Qiu Shui, the sealing monument in the sealed area of the Qingshui tribe was created by the saintess of the holy city. It seemed that the sacred monument used to test strength was also created by the saintess of the holy city. These stone tablets were engraved with many complicated runes of formations, making them appear extremely mysterious and ancient. Thinking of this, Zhuo Wen was quite curious about the saintess. She was actually able to create such unique stone monuments. Moreover, Zhuo Wen could feel that these stone monuments relied on formations to operate. It seemed that the saintess was indeed the highest leader of all the priests on the Sandstone Island. Her attainments in formations were extremely profound. The burly young man slowly walked in front of the sacred monument. His gaze was extremely solemn. Shortly after, he let out a loud shout and took a step forward. His right fist carried a sharp wind as it fiercely punched at the sacred monument in front of him. Boom! The strong wind from the punch suddenly blasted into the sacred monument. However, to everyone's surprise, the young man's powerful punch did not leave a single mark on the sacred monument. Deng deng deng! The powerful force immediately caused the young man to retreat continuously. After retreating for more than 10 steps, he finally stabilized his body. Kai! At the same time, a golden light shot out from the top of the sacred monument, revealing 3 golden words. Strength of 60,000 jin. Pass. Enter the holy city. The guard glanced at the young man in surprise. He did not expect this young man to be able to reach a strength of 60,000 jin at such a young age. Clearly, his talent was not bad. Hearing this, the young man's face immediately revealed a trace of joy. He respectfully bowed to the guard and entered the city under the envious gazes of many people. Although the number of people who came to the holy city every day was extremely large, the number of people who were truly qualified to enter the holy city was still extremely small. Those who were not qualified would stay outside the holy city and wait for the daily test to enter the city. This was also the reason why there were so many people lining up every day. Next, the guard's voice rang out again. This time, it was Zhuo Wen and the other two's turn. I'll go first. After taking a deep breath, Hu Wuying took the lead and walked towards the sacred monument. The guard looked at the thin figure of Hu Wuying in surprise. He did not expect such a thin young man to actually want to test his strength. Wasn't this asking for a snub? However, when Hu Wuying walked out, the eyes of many people in the line lit up. They recognized this thin figure of Hu Wuying. Wasn't he one of the people who had a conflict with Cai Sanwen's 4 subordinates? They clearly remembered that Hu Wuying defeated Cai Sanwen's 4 bronze warriors in a very straightforward manner. Obviously, this person would have a good result in the strength test. Cai Sanwen, who was standing in the line, also stared at Hu Wuying's figure without blinking. He wanted to see the extent of this kid's strength. Only after he understood the strength of these 3 brats would he be able to figure out how to deal with them in the holy city. Hu Wuying's face was calm. He clenched his 5 fingers and then casually punched the sacred monument. A thunderous sound suddenly rang out. Immediately, Hu Wuying silently took a few steps back and looked at the top of the sacred monument. Kai. The sacred tablet displayed the results in a similar manner. However, when the results finally appeared in front of everyone's eyes, everyone was stunned. Even the guards at the city gates could not help but be stunned. When he regained his senses, the gaze he used to look at Hu Wuying had changed. Strength of 300,000 jin, pass. After the guard reported the result with a dry voice, a commotion broke out among the crowd. They didn't expect Hu Wuying's strength to be measured to be 300,000 jin. This was already the level of a silver-ranked warrior. A warrior of this level was in existence with high authority in the holy city. I can't believe that this young man, who looks so young and frail, actually has a strength of 150,000 pounds. This kid's strength is definitely comparable to a silver-level warrior. Yes. After this kid enters the holy city, he will definitely have a meteoric rise. The sound of discussion rang out. Everyone stared at Hu Wuying's figure with eager eyes. Little brother, your test results are excellent. Now you can enter the holy city. With your strength, if you seek refuge with Lord Athos, I'm afraid you will be put in an important position very soon. The guard, who had a tense face, smiled for the first time and reminded Hu Wuying with enthusiasm. After all, the strength of the young man in front of him was higher than his. He did not dare to be negligent. Unexpectedly, Hu Wuying shook his head and said, I'll wait here. My 2 companions also need to take the test. When they are done, it won't be too late for the 3 of us to leave together. Hearing this, the guard was stunned. He did not expect such a powerful young man in front of him to have companions. To be his companions, their strength must be similar. Obviously, his companions were also at the level of a silver-level warrior. Chapter 385. The broken sacred tablet. Since Hu Wuying did not want to go in now, the guard had no choice but to shout again, next. After that, Ji Yuxin walked out of the group and stood in front of the sacred tablet. The guard stared at Ji Yuxin. He knew that this thin young man should be Hu Wuying's companion. The rest of the group also focused their attention on Ji Yuxin. They knew that the young man in front of them was probably a silver warrior, but they did not know how strong his strength was. Ji Yuxin secretly channeled the yuan power in his body and threw out a punch. An ear-piercing explosion suddenly rang out, and his huge fist smashed heavily on the sacred tablet. Boom! The root-like sacred tablet suddenly shook violently. When Ji Yuxin retracted his fist, everyone was shocked to find that a fist print several inches thick had appeared on the surface of the sacred tablet. He actually left a mark on the sacred tablet. This guy's strength is even stronger than the guy just now. Looking at the fist print on the sacred tablet, the guard's pupils shrank as he muttered to himself in amazement. The rest of the group also became restless. From Ji Yuxin's performance, it was obvious that his strength was even stronger than Hu Wuying's. Everyone could not help but be moved. At the same time, a line of golden words appeared on the top of the sacred tablet. When the guard saw the result displayed in the golden words, his lips trembled as he said, strength of 400,000 jin, pass. Hua. There was an uproar in the surroundings. Everyone's eyes bulged as they stared at the golden words on the sacred monument. They didn't expect this young man to be even more ferocious than Hu Wuying. His strength had reached 400,000 jin. Such strength could be considered as a pinnacle expert in the holy city. Which tribe are these 2 from? He looks to be around 20 years old, and his body isn't very robust either. Yet, He can actually possess a strength of 300,000 jinn and 400,000 jinn. With such strength, he's an extremely respected expert in the holy city. I didn't expect there to be 2 silver tier warriors in this test. What an eye-opener. CAI 30,000, who was standing in the middle of the group, immediately paled. He had not expected that Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying were both silver-ranked warriors. Moreover, they were the pinnacle of silver-ranked warriors. In the entire holy city, only the ruler of the holy city had reached 500,000 energy points and became the only golden warrior. Therefore, in the holy city, the status of a silver warrior was much higher than that of the other warriors. Even if it was a lower silver warrior, it was still incomparable to the other rich merchants and bronze warriors. Cai Sanqian thought that Zhuo Wen and the other 2 were just high-grade bronze warriors. With Cai Sanqian's connections and wealth, he had many ways to make Zhuo Wen and the other 2 disappear from the holy city without anyone knowing. However, now that 2 of the 3 Zhuowen and the other 2 were silver-ranked warriors, and they were even advanced silver warriors, he could not afford to offend such people. Thinking of the strength of Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying, Cai 30,000 finally felt fear in his heart. He secretly complained, "I can't afford to offend these 3 people. I can't afford to offend silver-ranked warriors. When I enter the holy city, I must avoid them." Looking at the 400,000 jinn words on the holy monument, the guard was a little numb. Although he could guess that Hu Wuiying's companion's strength was not bad, he did not expect that his strength was more than 100,000 jinn stronger than Hu Wuiying's. This was really beyond his expectation. Glancing at the result on the holy monument again, the guard's gaze fell on a black-haired young man who looked about 18 years old at the front of the group. He knew that this young man should be the companion of the 2 people just now. This young man is the youngest. I'm afraid that his strength is the weakest among the 3. Maybe he can reach 200,000 jinn, the guard muttered to himself. After witnessing the abnormal performance of Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuiying, the guard naturally would not underestimate Zhuowen, who was the youngest. Considering that Zhuowen was the youngest, he gave him a high evaluation of 200,000 jinn. One should know that if an 18-year-old could reach 200,000 jinn in strength, he would be considered a genius. Of course, the guard did not think that Zhuowen's strength would surpass the 2 young men just now. After all, Zhuowen was a little too young. In the guard's opinion, it was basically impossible for such a young man to reach 300,000 to 400,000 jinn. At this moment, Zhuowen's every move attracted the attention of the other people in the group behind him. They all wanted to see the results of the young man who came out last among the 3 people. Of course, most people had the same thoughts as the guard. They believed that Zhuowen's results would definitely not be better than Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuiying. Although there were many people who focused their attention on Zhuowen, they were not as eager as Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuiying. After all, Zhuowen was too young. No matter how monstrous his talent was, it was unlikely that his strength would exceed 300,000 jinn at such a young age. After his name was announced, Zhuowen calmly walked to the front of the sacred stele. After approaching the sacred stele, Zhuowen could feel a strange fluctuation enveloping the surroundings of the sacred stele. Obviously, this fluctuation was injected by the saintess when she was refining the sacred stele. This sacred stele can let me test the strength of my body. I wonder what level my physical strength will reach after 2 days of tempering the crystal jade. With this thought in mind, Zhuowen clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and suddenly punched out. A huge force formed a vacuum around Zhuowen's body. Countless transparent air currents surrounded Zhuowen's fist and turned into a spiral cyclone. Boom! The punch landed on the sacred stele. Immediately, an extremely strong ring-shaped wave of air swept out in all directions with Zhuowen as the center. Many warriors who were close to the sacred stele were forced to retreat under the effect of this wave of air. Some even fell to the ground in a sorry state. Even the guard, who was a silver warrior, was shocked. He covered his face with his hands and retreated continuously. He only stabilized his body after retreating more than 10 steps. This guy's strength. After stabilizing his body, the guard immediately looked at Zhuowen in the distance. Immediately, his pupils shrank to the size of needles. His mouth opened wide uncontrollably, and his face was full of disbelief. This was because he saw that the surface of the sacred stele, which was as hard as iron, was slowly showing traces of cracks. Moreover, these cracks were constantly spreading in all directions, like the veins of a human body. Crack! A crisp cracking sound suddenly rang out. Immediately, the sacred stele, which was 10 feet tall, crumbled inch by inch and turned into an endless amount of powder that drifted in the air. At this moment, the city gate fell into an extremely strange silence. Whether it was the guards standing at the city gate or the many warriors in the line, they were all dumbfounded as they stared at the sacred stele that had turned into powder. For a long time, they could not make a sound. Looking at the sacred stele that was shattered by his punch, Zhuowen's face suddenly had a trace of embarrassment. At the same time, there was a trace of joy in his heart. He did not expect that the effect of refining the crystal jade would be so good. In just 2 days, the strength of his physical body had reached such an unbelievable level. According to his estimation, just the strength of his physical body alone was probably around 500,000 pounds. If he directly used yuan power, the strength would be even greater. I really did not expect that just by reaching the peak of the 6th level of the jade stone body tempering technique, my physical strength would reach the standard of a gold warrior. If I can completely cultivate the jade stone body tempering technique to the 7th level, I'm afraid that my physical strength will reach an unimaginable level. It is very likely that I will not be weaker than a legendary warrior. Feeling the abundant strength in his body, Zhuowen could not help but think to himself with joy. You actually shattered the sacred stele? The strange silence at the city gate was finally broken by the guard. At this moment, the guard's voice was extremely hoarse. The gaze he looked at Zhuowen with became extremely complicated. No matter what, he did not expect that the sacred stele, which was specially used to test one's physical strength, would be shattered by someone. Moreover, this day had actually appeared in front of him. This is too unbelievable. How did this young man do it? He actually shattered the sacred stele directly. Oh my God! Just what kind of strength does this young man have? Even the saint stele was shattered by him. This is just too inconceivable. I have to rub my eyes to see if I'm hallucinating. In an instant, the entire city gate fell into an extremely frenzied discussion. Everyone's pupils constricted as they stared at Zhuowen and the sacred stele that had already turned into powder beside him. Zhuowen scratched his head slightly awkwardly and said to the guard apologetically, "It shouldn't be a problem to break this sacred stele, right?" Hearing this, the corner of the guard's mouth twitched. Although he really wanted to scold this young man in front of him, he did not dare to. This was because this young man's physical strength could possibly reach the level of 250,000 pounds. This was because a silver warrior could not shatter the sacred stele with a single punch. Only a gold warrior could do this. He did not dare to offend such an existence. Where did this young man come from? To be able to shatter the sacred stele with a single punch, his physical strength could very well be at least 250,000 pounds. His strength is enough to be ranked as a gold warrior. Thinking bitterly in his heart, the guard hurriedly smiled respectfully and said, "Of course it's all right. How can this sacred stele be compared to Sir? Your physical strength has reached the standard. You can definitely enter the holy city directly." Seeing the forced smile on the guard's face, Zhuowen felt a little apologetic in his heart. However, he knew that since he had already destroyed the sacred stele, it was impossible for him to take out another one. Therefore, he nodded slightly and directly led Jiu Xin and Hu Wuying into the city gate. "Sir, what should we do next? The sacred stele has already been destroyed by that, sir. How are we going to test it?" A man standing behind the guard asked with a bitter smile. "Sai, you should quickly go to the Parthenon temple and inform the saintess about this matter. The saintess should have extra sacred steles. She can just take out another one. However, that young man's strength has definitely reached the level of a gold warrior. When you return, you should also inform the saintess." The guard quickly calmed down and said to the man behind him. Chapter 386. 9 Dragons City. Inside the holy city, there was an endless stream of people. At a glance, it was densely packed with people. Its degree of prosperity was almost no less than Broken Rock City. Whoosh! As soon as they entered the holy city, the badge on Zhuowen's waist lit up. The teams from Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City are indeed in the holy city. These two teams are not to be underestimated. The three of us better be careful, Zhuowen said to Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying behind him. Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying nodded cautiously and followed closely behind Zhuowen. On a wide street on the west side of the holy city, a group of people dressed in luxurious black robes slowly walked down the street. Their leader had a head of curly brown hair and a gaze as sharp as a wild wolf's. It was an exceptionally terrifying sight. This brown-haired youth was the captain of the group from Nine Dragons City, Feng Long. He was an expert who could break through to the ultimate emperor realm at any time. Feng Long, who was walking leisurely in front of the team, suddenly frowned and stopped. He glanced at the badge on his waist and saw that it was flashing rapidly. Feng Long, why did you suddenly stop? A graceful woman in red clothes standing behind Feng Long asked with a frown. The woman in red clothes was one of the three ultimate Emperor Realm experts in the team from Nine Dragons City. She was quite powerful. It seems like another team has entered the Holy City. They clearly know that the teams from Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City are in the Holy City, yet they still dare to enter. It seems like this team is quite brave, Feng Long said with a smile on his face. They are quite brave indeed. Why don't we get rid of that team? The woman in red clothes also saw the shining badge in Feng Long's hand. Her beautiful eyes moved as she said with a smile. No need. They are just clowns. Our main opponent this time is still Thunder Universe City, and after so many days of investigation, we finally know the way to obtain this sandstone island. Let's go to the Parthenon Temple first and ask the saintess of the temple to open the trial for us, Feng Long said while shaking his head. That's true. However, what if the Holy Maiden doesn't agree? The red-clothed woman nodded and asked worriedly. I heard that the Holy City's Holy Maiden is extremely kind. We only need to casually kill a few powerful members of the bereaved clan in front of the Holy Maiden. I'm afraid that the Holy Maiden will have to agree even if she doesn't want to. Feng Long's eyes revealed a trace of coldness as he smiled. Although the Lu Nantian had stated in advance that no ancient survivors were to be wantonly slaughtered in the tower, the Lu Nantian would not care too much about killing a few ancient survivors. Let's go. Don't let Thunder Universe City beat us to it. Saying this, Feng Long led the team to the Parthenon Temple. Currently, on the top floor of the Parthenon Temple, the blonde saintess Alice frowned. For some reason, she felt uneasy today. Lady Alice, what is troubling you so much? Let Choshure hear it. Perhaps Choshure can share your burden. In the hall, a young woman with a graceful figure stood behind Alice. When she saw the latter frown, she couldn't help but ask worriedly. If Zhuowen and the other two were here, they would be able to recognize this young woman as Priest Choshure who had separated from them not long ago. I don't know why. Recently, I've been feeling a little uneasy, as if some danger is approaching the holy city, Alice said with a wry smile. Hearing this, Priest Choshure lowered her head and pondered. The saintess was the person with the highest achievement in the Tao of Formations on the Sandstone Island. Her premonitions were extremely accurate. Since the saintess said so, perhaps some disaster was really coming to the holy city. Dawn. Suddenly, an armored warrior hurried into the hall and knelt before the saintess on one knee. Lady Saintess, is there a holy monument in the temple? Holy monument? Why are you asking this? Is there a problem with the holy monument at the city gate? Alice frowned and stared at the warrior below. There is indeed a problem. The sacred stele has already been shattered into pieces by a young man with a single punch. The warrior wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead and said cautiously, What? It was shattered by someone? Alice, who was originally uneasy, trembled when she heard this news. She could not help but cry out involuntarily. Even Priest Choshure, who was standing at the side of the hall, had her beautiful eyes slightly bulged when she heard this news. There was a hint of extreme shock in the depths of her eyes. The holy monument was personally refined by the saintess. Its hardness was almost indestructible. Even a warrior at the peak of the silver level could not break the holy monument. Perhaps only the lord of the holy city, Athos, had such strength. However, Zhuowen's figure soon appeared in priest Choshure's mind. The figure of him killing the evil creature was deeply imprinted in her mind and could not be erased for a long time. Could it be Zhuowen and his two companions? Priest Choshure could not help but murmur softly. To break the holy monument, one must at least have the strength of a gold warrior. In the entire Sandstone Island, only the lord of the holy city, Athos, has such strength. Could it be that other than the lord of the holy city, there are others who have reached the level of a gold warrior? Alice frowned and asked doubtfully. The one who broke the holy monument was a young man who was only about 18 years old. That young man looked rather frail, but no one would have thought that his body actually contained such a powerful strength. Moreover, that young man had two companions. His companions were also quite strong, having the strength of an advanced silver warrior. I do not know where they came from. Hearing this, Priest Choshure was even more certain that the young man who broke the holy monument was Zhuowen. She did not doubt that Zhuowen had the strength of a gold warrior. Moreover, Zhuowen and his companions were also in a group of 3. Alice sighed and said, "There is still one holy monument left in the temple. Go to the magic formation room on the first floor of the temple and retrieve it. This is the key to the magic formation room." As she spoke, Alice took out a golden key and handed it to the soldier who reported. "Thank you, Saintess." After receiving the key, the soldier nodded slightly, bowed, and left the hall. When only Alice and Priest Choshure were left in the hall, Priest Choshure's beautiful eyes flashed slightly. Finally, she said respectfully, "Saintess, that young man who broke the holy monument should be the Zhuowen I told you about. In the entire Sandstone Island, only he has the strength of a gold warrior." Hearing Priest Choshure's words, Alice said in surprise, "That Zhuowen who killed the evil creature? That's him." Being able to kill the evil creature already proves that Zhuowen has such strength. Moreover, I believe that Zhuowen is even stronger than the lord of the holy city, Lord Athos. After all, Lord Athos does not have the strength to kill the evil creature. Priest Choshure nodded slightly. Hearing Priest Choshure's evaluation, a trace of surprise appeared in Alice's beautiful eyes. She was rather curious about the young man Zhuowen that Priest Choshure had mentioned. Boom! 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 Suddenly, an extremely violent explosion came from below the Parthenon temple. Soon after, the entire Parthenon temple trembled violently. Alice and Priest Choshure in the hall lost their balance due to the tremors and almost fell. What's going on? Why is the temple suddenly trembling? Alice's beautiful face changed slightly. Saintess, it's not good. Someone is attacking the temple. 2 panicked maids quickly ran in from outside the hall and shouted loudly. What? Someone actually dares to attack the temple? How is this possible? Alice's face changed drastically when she heard this. The Parthenon temple was the core of the holy city. It was also the sacred land of countless lost tribes. For thousands of years, no one had ever attacked the temple, yet it had happened today. Alice quickly regained her composure and asked the maids in front of her, "Did you see who is attacking the temple?" "It's a group of people in black. There are only 8 of them, but each of them has a tremendous amount of energy. I'm afraid there are several gold warriors among them. Right now, the group of black-robed men were recklessly attacking the array formation outside the holy temple. Saintess, you should quickly enter the secret passage and leave the temple. Those people might be attacking the temple for you," the 2 maids said in fear. "What? Several gold warriors? How is that possible? Since when did our Sandstone Island have so many gold warriors? Where's the lord of the holy city, Athos? Why hasn't Athos appeared when someone is attacking the temple?" Alice's face turned pale as she hurriedly asked about Athos' situation. The 2 maids shook their heads in confusion and said, "It's been many days since we've seen Lord Athos. We don't know where Lord Athos is right now." Catcher. All of a sudden, the entire Parthenon temple started trembling violently. It was as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. The crisp sound of shattering glass rang out. Oh no, the formations outside the temple have been broken. Alice's pretty face instantly turned pale when the crisp sound rang out. She spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The magic formation of the Parthenon temple was closely related to Saintess Alice. If the magic formation was broken, Saintess Alice would suffer the backlash of the magic formation. Saintess, we have to leave the temple immediately. The two of you, hurry and help the Saintess. Priest Choshire made a prompt decision. She ordered the two maids to help Alice and led the way out of the hall. She remembered that the secret passage in the temple was at the corner of the corridor to the left. They would be safe once they entered the passage. Soon, Priest Choshire and the others arrived at the corner of the corridor. There was an inconspicuous mirror at the corner of the corridor. Priest Choshue made a hand seal and chanted an obscure incantation. Shortly after, ripples appeared on the surface of the mirror before her, and then a deep secret passageway appeared within the mirror. Let's go in. Joy appeared on Priest Choshue's face when she saw the passage in the mirror. She lifted her foot and stepped in. However, a golden aura shot towards her like an arrow the moment she lifted her foot. It slammed into her shoulder. Bang! Chapter 387. Feng Long and Pang Tongzhuowen's group of three strolled along the street, enjoying the sight of the buildings of different styles in the holy city. Boom! 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 A violent explosion suddenly rang out. Zhuowen's group of three came to a halt as they shifted their gazes towards the source of the sound. The explosion came from the Parthenon temple. Could it be that the two teams from Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City have started fighting? Ji Yuxin asked in astonishment. The magnificent Parthenon temple in the distance was currently shaking violently. A transparent barrier surrounded the Parthenon temple. It was obviously an extremely powerful defensive formation. Above the defensive formation, a group of 8 people were constantly unleashing extremely powerful primary energy, bombarding the barrier in an attempt to completely destroy the defensive formation. The Parthenon temple is the core of the holy city. It must contain the secrets of the control center of the Sandstone Island. Previously, Priest Choshire also mentioned about the power of the holy city. According to her, only those who pass the test of the Parthenon temple are qualified to obtain the power of the holy city. I'm afraid all the secrets are inside the temple. Come, let's go to the temple. Having said that, Zhuowen took the lead and rushed straight towards the Parthenon temple in the distance, while Ji Yuxin and Hu Wuying followed closely behind. In the corridor at the top of the Parthenon temple, Priest Choshire stood up with difficulty with the help of another maid. Her beautiful eyes stared at the group of people slowly approaching in front of her in horror. The golden energy just now was extremely terrifying. At this moment, her body felt like it was about to fall apart, and it was extremely difficult for her to even move. Who are you people? Why are you trespassing into the temple? Seeing the group of people slowly approaching from the end of the corridor, Alice asked in a delicate voice. There were 8 people at the end of the corridor, all of them wearing black luxurious clothes. The person in the lead had brown hair and a wicked smile on his face. These 8 people were the team from Nine Dragons City, and the brown-haired man in the lead was the captain of Nine Dragons City. Feng Long, you must be Saintess Alice. Beautiful Miss Alice, there is no need to panic. We have no ill intentions. We only have a small request for trespassing into the temple. I hope Miss Alice can agree to this small request of mine. Feng Long cupped his hands together in an elegant manner. Request? What request? Hearing this, Alice had a bad feeling in her heart. This request is very simple. Legend has it that the Parthenon temple was built by the only legendary warrior on the Sandstone Island, Alis. Below the Parthenon temple lies a trial left behind by Alis. Alis once declared that whoever could pass the trial would become the true ruler of the sacred city and control the Sandstone Island. The corners of Feng Long's lips curled up as he continued, that is why our request is for Miss Alice to open the entrance to the training ground beneath the temple. I would like to test the might of that training ground. Your goal is to enter the trial ground beneath the temple? No, the trial beneath the holy temple must not be opened to the public. Alice firmly disagreed when she heard this. Feng Long narrowed his eyes when he heard this. He snorted coldly and said, "Miss Alice, as far as I know, the temple has opened the passage to the trial ground many times in the past. Why can't it be opened now? You should know that my patience is limited. If you wait for me to lose my patience, I don't know what I will do." Feng Long's right hand moved slightly as he spoke. With a flick of his finger, a golden aura surged out like an arrow. Poochie. The golden energy was like the sharpest arrow, instantly piercing through Priest Choshure's abdomen. Blood immediately poured out of Priest Choshure's wound like a faucet that had not been turned on properly. Priest Choshure's pretty face was pale and in pain. She clutched her wound and collapsed to the ground. "Stop. You." Alice's face was pale as she glared at Feng Long with hatred. "Miss Alice, I said that my patience is limited. I hope you will not challenge my bottom line again, because I can't guarantee that I won't kill that woman the next time." Feng Long played with his fingers as he spoke in an indifferent tone. Alice suddenly felt dejected when she heard this. She knew that the man in front of her was a cruel and merciless person. He would definitely take Priest Autumn Water's life the next time he made a move. "I'll tell you the truth. The king of the Netherworld clan, the king of the evil creatures, was sealed under the temple. Its strength far surpassed other ordinary evil creatures. Even the Golden Warriors were no match for the king of the evil creatures. Only a legendary-level warrior can defeat it. The king of evil was sealed here by Lord Alis. The reason Lord Alis built the Parthenon temple was to suppress the king of evil. As for the trial ground, it was built to select the true lord of the holy city. The king of evil was too powerful. Even Lord Alis was unable to eliminate it. Thus, he could only use the trial ground to select another lord of the holy city. This way, the king of evil could continue to be suppressed. However, thousands of years have passed. Generations of warriors have entered the trial ground. Yet, no one has succeeded in becoming the lord of the holy city and inheriting the power of the holy city. As time passed, the king of evil under the temple gradually awakened. Thus, the king of evil attempted to break through the seal. Due to the Parthenon temple, the king of evil was unable to break through the seal. However, the king of evil was too powerful. Although it did not break through the seal, its power had invaded the trial ground. The trial ground has now fallen into the king of evil's territory. Entering the trial ground is simply courting death. Moreover, once the passage to the trial ground is opened, the king of evil's power will inevitably enter the Sandstone Island through the passage. When that happens, the king of evil might break out of the seal. When that happens, the people will be plunged into misery and suffering, with mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Alice's pretty face was filled with a dignified expression. In the end, she narrated the unforeseen events of the trial grounds. If the trial grounds had not been eroded by the king of evil creatures, opening the trial grounds would not be a problem. But now, they absolutely could not open it. Otherwise, the king of evil creatures might really break out of the seal. The expressions of Feng Long and the others turned grave when they heard this. Although they did not know what the so-called king of evil was, they knew the power of a legendary-level warrior. On the Sandstone Island, a legendary-level warrior's strength could reach over 1,000,000 kilograms. They could tear the sky apart with a wave of their fist, and crack the earth with a stomp of their foot. They were extremely powerful, comparable to a peak Ultimate Emperor realm powerhouse in the outside world. However, the king of evil was actually able to contend against an existence like a peak Ultimate Emperor realm powerhouse. Clearly, its strength was terrifying. This made Feng Long and the others feel rather apprehensive. Seeing that Feng Long and the others were moved, Alice let out a light sigh. She could feel that the strength of the people in front of her was extremely terrifying. In particular, Feng Long's oppressive aura gave her a kind of illusion of vastness. Clearly, Feng Long was an existence that far surpassed the holy city lord, Atos. "Captain, what should we do now? If what Alice said is true, then the trial ground is likely to be a dangerous place," the woman in red suddenly said. Feng Long's eyes darkened. He shook his head and said, "Our Nine Dragons City must obtain the control center of the Sandstone Island. Otherwise, our Nine Dragons City will stop at the first floor of the Origin Chi Tower." That's not my style at all. Since that so-called king of evil isn't weaker than a peak ultimate emperor realm powerhouse, I'm very interested in meeting it. After all, I've been suppressing my strength for far too long. It's about time for me to release it. Captain, do you intend to break through after entering the trial ground? The woman in red frowned when she heard this. Millimeter, I've been stuck at the half-step ultimate emperor realm for over 2 years. At the same time, I've been preparing for over 2 years. This time, I'm confident that I can withstand the heavenly tribulation. As long as I can endure it, I'll be able to advance to the mid-ultimate emperor realm. Then, I should have no problem facing the king of evil. Feng Long's eyes narrowed as he spoke indifferently. The woman in red immediately revealed an excited expression when she heard this. If Feng Long could successfully advance to the ultimate emperor realm, then Nine Dragons City would definitely be able to obtain a decent ranking in the competition for the Origin Chi Tower. Miss Alice, I'm very sorry, but we must enter the trial ground. Today, you must open the passage to the trial ground for us. Otherwise, I don't mind going on a killing spree. You should have seen my strength by now. With my strength, killing the silver warriors of the holy city is as easy as slaughtering dogs. Therefore, I hope that you'll agree to our request. Feng Long's gaze was fixed on Alice at this moment. His tone was flat and unquestionable. Alice's face paled. Just as she was about to say something, a rather ear-piercing explosion suddenly rang out. Then, another group of people appeared at the end of the corridor. Haha. Feng Long, you're pretty fast. You actually found the holy maiden so quickly. A somewhat savage laugh suddenly rang out from the corridor behind them. Feng Long and the others frowned and turned their heads to look behind them. They saw a group of 8 people slowly walking towards them from the end of the corridor. The person in the lead was about 25 years old. He had a sturdy body, and what was even stranger was that this person had a head of short white hair. Each strand of hair stood up like silver needles. Moreover, strands of lightning flickered between his white hair like spirit snakes. Thunder Universe City's captain, Pang Tong. Feng Long narrowed his eyes and coldly stared at Pang Tong, who was striding towards them. What? You don't welcome me? The fight for control of the island this time will depend on our own abilities. When we enter the trial ground, it will depend on which of us obtains the key first. Chapter 388. Field of Trials. The person Pang Tong had casually tossed to the ground was a middle-aged man. He had a muscular body and was slightly taller than Pang Tong. He wore golden armor, but at this moment, the golden armor was cracked and broken. It was obvious that it had gone through an extremely fierce battle. When Alice and the others saw the man who had been tossed to the ground, they were shocked. This man in golden armor was the current lord of the holy city, Athos. No wonder I didn't see any of you. You went to deal with Athos. Feng Long looked indifferently at the unconscious Athos on the ground and said with a slight smirk. After all, this guy is the lord of the holy city in name. He looks strong, but he can't take a beating at all. This kind of trash can be called the lord of the holy city. What a joke. Pang Tong laughed unscrupulously as he kicked Athos back and said, "Don't play dead with me. Hurry up and wake up." Poochie. Athos immediately spat out a mouthful of blood from Pang Tong's kick and woke up from his coma. When Athos saw that he was under Pang Tong's foot, his eyes were filled with anger. "Bastard! I'll kill you." With a roar, Athos pounced at Pang Tong without any regard for his life. "Trash! You want to kill me with this little strength of yours? You really don't know what's good for you." Pang Tong sneered and stomped his foot forward. A bolt of lightning as thick as a child's arm suddenly burst out from the ground and bombarded Athos' chest. Poochie. Athos spat out another mouthful of blood. His entire body was suspended in the air by the powerful lightning energy. Pang Tong smiled cruelly and smashed his right elbow down, smashing directly into Athos' back. Boom. Athos was directly smashed into the ground. The powerful force immediately blasted a human-shaped hole in the white stone floor. Athos was embedded in the ground, struggling silently. Pang Tong stepped on Athos' face and stared at Alice with a cruel gaze. "You should be the saintess of this temple, right? Now, I'll give you a chance. Open the passage to the trial ground immediately, or I'll crush Atos's head. I'll only give you 3 seconds. If you don't give me a clear answer, don't blame me for being merciless. I'll start counting now. 1, 2, 3. Alice's pretty face instantly turned pale when she saw the bloody Atos beneath Pang Tong's foot. She gritted her teeth and said, "Let Atos go, and I agree to open the trial ground." Hee. I like people who know how to adapt to circumstances. Since you've agreed, I'll return this trash to you. Grinning, Pang Tong kicked Atos over to Alice. He crossed his arms and quietly waited for Alice to open the tunnel to the trial ground. On the other hand, Feng Long and the others simply stood aside and watched coldly. Their goal was the same as Pang Tong's. They all needed Alice to open the passage to the trial grounds. Thus, they naturally wouldn't stop Pang Tong's actions. After handing Atos over to the 2 maids, Alice glanced indifferently at Pang Tong, Feng Long, and the others. She said indifferently, "Follow me into the sacred hall. If you want to open the tunnel to the trial ground, you'll need the help of the sacred hall." After saying that, Alice ignored Feng Long, Pang Tong, and the others. She took the lead and entered the sacred hall at the back of the corridor. Feng Long and Pang Tong looked at each other and followed Alice into the sacred hall without hesitation. In their opinion, Alice was completely powerless. She couldn't play any tricks in front of them. A huge crystal ball floated in the middle of the sacred hall. At this moment, the crystal ball was emitting a lustrous white light. Alice came in front of the crystal ball and knelt on the ground with a devout expression. She put her palms together and chanted an obscure incantation. After that, Alice extended her jade-like hand and gently touched the surface of the crystal ball. Immediately, an extremely dazzling white light erupted from the crystal ball. The white light, which was like a scorching sun, gradually gathered above the crystal ball and gradually formed a huge door of light. This door of light was 100 feet tall and 50 feet wide. The trial ground is on the other side of the door of light. Right now, the trial ground is out of control. I don't know what will happen inside. So, you'd better take care of yourselves, Alice said coldly. Feng Long narrowed his eyes and stared at the door of light. No one knew what he was thinking. Pang Tong, on the other hand, snorted coldly and gave Alice a warning glare. He lifted his foot and was about to step into the door of light. However, the moment he lifted his foot, the identity token on his waist suddenly vibrated and emitted a dazzling white light. Chem. The identity token lit up. Another team is coming. Feng Long, didn't you say that there are only 2 teams in the entire holy city? Why is there another team here? Pang Tong stopped and looked at the token on his waist that was vibrating strangely. He frowned and said, "On this sandstone island, there shouldn't be a team that can threaten our 9 Dragons City and your Thunder Universe City. Don't tell me you're afraid of that team." The token on Feng Long's waist also vibrated. However, he didn't care at all. He just stared at Pang Tong with a mocking expression. Afraid? I, Pang Tong, have never been afraid of anything. However, I'm a little curious. Your 9 Dragons City and our Thunder Universe City are ranked at the top of the high-grade cities. Both of you are powerful existences. What I don't understand is that there is actually a team that dares to compete with us when they know that both of our teams exist. They are quite courageous. However, I wonder which team is that reckless team. Pang Tong laughed mischievously. Actually, I'm also a little curious about the origin of that team. Why don't we wait and see for the time being? Let's see which team dares to compete with our 2 teams for the control of the island. Feng Long crossed his arms and the corners of his mouth curled up. Deng deng deng. The 2 teams didn't have to wait for too long. Clear footsteps came from outside the sacred hall. Soon after, 3 figures appeared at the entrance of the sacred hall. We finally made it. That light door should be the entrance to the training ground. The leader of the 3 figures was a black-haired young man. This young man was Zhuoan, who had rushed over in a hurry. As soon as he entered the sacred hall, he placed all his attention on the light door. The 3 of them had naturally encountered the injured priestess Qiu Shui when they were in the corridor leading into the sacred hall. Priestess Qiu Shui had told the three of them everything that had happened without hiding anything. As a result, the three of them were able to tell at a glance that the huge door of light was the entrance to the trial grounds after entering the sacred hall. Swoosh! The appearance of Zhuowen and the other two immediately attracted the attention of the teams from Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City. However, when the two teams discovered that the token on Zhuowen's waist was only a mundane rank token, a strange expression appeared in everyone's eyes. A team from a low-grade city? Hee hee. You guys really overestimate yourselves. You're obviously trash from a low-grade city, but you actually dare to compete with us, two high-grade cities. I really don't know if water has entered your heads. Pang Tong grinned and laughed, not hiding the contempt and ridicule on his face. The corners of Feng Long's mouth curled into a smile. Although he had already guessed that the team would be from a low-grade city, he didn't expect it to be from a low-grade city. This made Feng Long uninterested in Zhuowen and the other two. How strong could a team from a low-grade city be? It was likely that none of the three would survive after entering the training ground. Ignore these three guys. Pang Tong, we'll go in first. The control center of the Sandstone Island belongs to our Nine Dragons City. I'm afraid it won't be so easy for your Thunder Universe City to obtain it. Ha ha. With a loud laugh, Feng Long led the team from Nine Dragons City and entered the light door without hesitation. Soon, they disappeared from everyone's sight. Pang Tong narrowed his eyes and stared at Feng Long's group, who had disappeared into the light door. He coldly snorted and said, "You guys are really confident. The training ground isn't so simple. It won't be easy for your Nine Dragons City to pass through." As he spoke, Pang Tong's gaze directly focused on Zhuowen and the other two in front of him. The corners of his mouth curled slightly as he said, "Three trash from a low-grade city. Let me kindly remind you that you should know your limits. Otherwise, you will die an unjust death." After speaking, Pang Tong waved his hand and led the team from Thunder Universe City into the light door. Jiyu Xin, Wu Ying, the two of you don't have to go in. Priest Choshire has already reminded you that the training ground has already been eroded by the power of the King of Evil Beings. If the two of you enter, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to protect yourself. I can go in by myself. Looking at Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying beside him, Zhuowen said with a calm expression. Hearing this, Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying hesitated for a moment. In the end, they nodded. They also knew that their current strength was too weak and couldn't help Zhuowen at all. Therefore, they didn't stubbornly follow Zhuowen into the training ground. Zhuowen, you have to be careful. If you really can't hold on, then erase the words on the identity token. That way, you can directly teleport out of the Vitality Tower. Jiyu Xin and Hu Wuying both nodded and said. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen turned around and was about to enter the light door when a graceful woman with long blonde hair suddenly blocked his path. You are the Saintess Alice? Looking at the blonde beauty in front of him, Zhuowen asked with some uncertainty. Nodding, Alice stared closely at Zhuowen and said, You are Zhuowen. I heard Priest Choshire often mention you. I also know that you have a powerful power to destroy evil beings. Perhaps, you really can pass the test of the training ground and master the power of the Holy City. I have a small request. I hope that after you obtain the power of the Holy City, you can help our vestigial clan destroy the King of Evil Beings under the seal. Otherwise, when the King of Evil Beings breaks out of the seal, the entire vestigial clan on the Sandstone Island will be exterminated. Looking at Alice in front of him, Zhuowen said with a smile, You are so confident that I can pass the test of the training ground? Chapter 389. Aris doppelganger. Looking at the serious expression on Alice's pretty face, Zhuowen rubbed his nose guiltily and said, Yes, if I can really obtain the power of the Holy City, I will naturally help your vestigial clan deal with the King of Evil Creatures. Even if Alice didn't mention it, Zhuowen had already planned to meet the King of Evil Creatures. One must know that the evil creature he killed in the Clearwater tribe previously contained the bloodline of a true dragon. Although the bloodline of a true dragon was extremely rare, it was still able to upgrade the Moon Demon Dragon Spine Spear from a low high-class soul treasure to a mid-high-class soul treasure. The king of evil creatures was an existence that was above all other evil creatures. It was likely that the bloodline of a true dragon in its body was much richer than that of ordinary evil creatures. If he were to absorb the blood essence of the king of evil creatures, the moon demon dragon spine spear in his hand would most likely undergo a transformation. At that time, his strength would most likely rise to another level. Whoosh! With a light step, Zhuowen stepped into the door of light. His figure disappeared before their eyes in an instant. Zhuowen, this time, it's all up to you. I hope you can really pass the test of the training ground. Jiu Xin and Hu Wuying both clenched their fists and whispered nervously. This was a fiery red world. When Zhuowen's feet stepped onto the ground, a fiery heat wave suddenly hit him in the face, causing Zhuowen to involuntarily frown. Looking around, Zhuowen discovered that he was currently in an open space similar to a plaza. The ground of the open space had fiery red cracks, and within these cracks, a fiery red liquid was slowly flowing like a stream. Upon closer inspection, Zhuowen discovered that the fiery red liquid within the cracks was actually magma. The entire open space was flowing with magma. If not for the existence of the cracks on the ground, Zhuowen suspected that the magma would have overflowed. There were 4 thick pillars that pierced the clouds around the empty space. Black chains were intertwined around the surface of the pillars. An icy cold glow faintly seeped out from the surface of the chains, causing the entire empty space to appear extremely strange. Outside the open space, there was a constantly tumbling sea of magma. This sea of magma was endless as far as the eye could see, and from time to time, huge waves of magma would surge up from within the sea of magma. They were like giant dragons that howled and wreaked havoc, causing one to feel fear just by looking at them. "Ci." A soft voice suddenly sounded in the open space. Immediately, the lava around the open space gathered and surged in the air like arrows. Not long after, it condensed into a muscular and handsome middle-aged man several thousand feet above the open space. The middle-aged man had short golden hair similar to Athos, and even his face was quite similar to Athos. At first glance, Zhuowen thought that the middle-aged man condensed from magma was Athos. "Hello, trial taker, my name is Alice. I am the creator of this trial ground. What you see now is my doppelganger." The middle-aged man's face was stiff and his eyes were devoid of color. He just recited mechanically, "Alice." It's actually the only Alice on the Sandstone Island who has reached the legendary level. Looking at the middle-aged man in the sky, Zhuowen could not help but whisper, "As I once said, if you can pass the trial I set up, then you will be able to obtain the most precious thing on the Sandstone Island, which is the power of the Holy City. You will also become the new lord of the Holy City and control the lifeline of the entire Sandstone Island. You will become a powerhouse respected by tens of thousands of people." This doppelganger of Alice obviously did not have the slightest intelligence. He just recited mechanically and did not give Zhuowen a chance to ask any questions. Of course, Zhuowen himself also knew that it was undoubtedly more difficult than ascending to the heavens to ask some questions from this doppelganger that seemed to have no intelligence. "Then what is the trial you set up?" Although Zhuowen knew that this doppelganger of Alice did not have the slightest intelligence, he still subconsciously asked. However, to Zhuowen's surprise, the doppelganger of Alice, who was originally stiff in the sky, suddenly smiled strangely. This smile only appeared for a moment before it disappeared, and his stiff expression was restored. Alice doppelganger said, "Kill the netherworld race." After Alice finished speaking, he did not speak anymore. He just floated in the air above the open space and looked down at Zhuowen below. "Kill the netherworld race." Hearing this, Zhuowen could not help but feel a little puzzled. The so-called netherworld race was an evil being. Priest Choshure had mentioned it before. "Awoo." Just as Zhuowen was feeling puzzled, a mournful howl suddenly sounded above the open space. Immediately, the sea of magma outside the open space suddenly surged and a huge monster suddenly appeared in front of Zhuowen. Looking over, Zhuowen recognized at a glance that this monster was the evil being he had encountered when he was in the Qingshui tribe. However, the evil being in front of him was smaller in size than the one he had encountered in the sealed area. Moreover, the aura emitted from its body was also much weaker than the one Zhuowen had encountered last time. I just have to kill this evil being in front of me. This trial isn't that difficult. Looking at the evil being in front of him, the corners of Zhuowen's mouth curved. Previously, he had killed an evil being. Moreover, the evil being in front of him was far weaker than the one in the sealed area, whether it was in size or aura. With Zhuowen's current strength, he could easily kill this evil being even without using the Icefire Lotus. Awoo! As if it had noticed the disdain in the eyes of the human in front of it, the evil being roared and stomped its feet on the ground. Its huge black claws directly clawed at Zhuowen's neck. You overestimate yourself. With a cold snort, Zhuowen suddenly pulled out the Demon Moon Dragon's Pine Spear from his Chenkuan bag. The blood-red spear emitted an extremely terrifying blood energy. Demon Moon Secret Codex 5th Style, Blood Explosion Style. Zhuowen roared and brandished the spear with both hands. Countless blood energy gushed out from the blood-red spear. Then, he stomped his feet forward. With the spear in his hand, he swiftly stabbed out like a swimming dragon. In an instant, countless blood-red spear rain enveloped the evil being in front of him. Poochie. Before the evil being could react, it was pierced through by the blood-red spear rain. Without any resistance, it fell in front of Zhuowen. Hey! Isn't this evil being a little too weak? Logically speaking, the Demon Moon Dragon's Pine Spear shouldn't be able to pierce through that evil being's tough body so easily. Zhuowen was puzzled as he gazed at the evil being that had already died at his feet. The evil being that Zhuowen had encountered in the Qingshui tribe was extremely difficult to deal with. Its tough body was enough to withstand a round of attacks from an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. At that time, it had been a huge headache for Zhuowen. However, this evil being in the trial grounds was a little too weak. It couldn't even withstand a single strike from Zhuowen's spear. This filled Zhuowen's heart with puzzlement. Zhuowen raised his head slightly and looked at Alice's clone in the sky. He frowned and said, I've already killed this nether race. I should be considered to have passed. However, Alice's clone in the sky didn't move at all. He was like a stone statue and didn't hear Zhuowen at all. Awoo! Awoo! At this moment, the sea of lava once again surged with an extremely majestic wave. Two sharp roars abruptly swept out from within the wave. Two rather large evil beings directly pounced towards Zhuowen. As expected, there are more. It looks like this trial isn't as simple as I thought. Zhuowen wasn't afraid at all when he saw the two evil beings rushing towards him. He pointed his spear at the void and immediately used the fourth move of the Demon Moon Secret Manual, Bloodburst form. Boom! The blood-red spear seemed to have transformed into a huge blood-red mountain and directly crushed the two evil beings in the air. The powerful force caused the blood and chi in the two evil beings to explode and turn them into a bloody pulp. Awoo! After killing the second batch, another 4 evil beings emerged from the sea of lava and continued to rush towards Zhuowen without fear of death. 4, 8, 16. The pattern of each batch of evil beings appearing was twice as fast as the previous batch. Moreover, each wave of evil beings was more ferocious than the previous one. In the beginning, Zhuowen had an easier time dealing with them. After all, the strength of these evil beings in the trial ground was far lower than the evil beings sealed in the Qingshui tribe. Zhuowen could kill many evil beings with a casual sweep of his spear. Many ants could kill an elephant. When the number of evil beings increased to 256, Zhuowen also began to have difficulty dealing with them. The evil beings rushed towards Zhuowen from all directions like a tidal wave. Their sharp claws emitted a cold light as they unceremoniously grabbed at the vital parts of Zhuowen's body. With so many evil beings attacking at the same time, even Zhuowen couldn't defend himself in an instant. Therefore, many of them slipped through the gaps in Zhuowen's defense and directly grabbed at the latter's vital parts. Demon Moon Secret Codex 3rd Style, Blood Maple Dance. Countless blood chi suddenly gushed out from Zhuowen's meridians and immediately formed blood-stained maple leaves around Zhuowen's body. When the evil beings broke through his defense and attacked the vital parts of his body, they were all blocked by the blood-stained maple leaves on the surface of Zhuowen's body. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The blood-stained maple leaves had an extremely terrifying corrosive effect. The moment the evil beings that directly attacked Zhuowen's body came into contact with the blood-stained maple leaves, they were all corroded into nothingness by the powerful corrosive effect. All of you, die. Demon Moon Secret Codex 5th Style, Blood Explosion Style. Explode, explode, explode. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was bathed in blood. Holding the blood-stained great spear, he suddenly swept it horizontally. In an instant, dozens of evil beings were crushed by the great spear. Countless evil beings' blood essence condensed into dozens of palm-sized blood-stained spheres. Boom, boom, boom. The instant the blood-stained spheres were formed, they flew out in all directions and bombarded the evil beings in the surroundings. Soon after, an extremely ear-piercing explosion suddenly rang out. The evil beings that originally wanted to pounce on Hua Yuhao were all blown to smithereens by the explosive energy. Huff, huff, huff. Panting slightly, Zhuo Wen's gaze gradually became solemn. He didn't expect that the evil beings would actually increase in number the more he fought. Most likely, if this continued, he would really exhaust all the essence energy in his body. Chapter 390. Mother Nest Magma Wave after wave of evil beings pounced on Zhuo Wen without fear of death. Wave after wave of evil beings pounced on Zhuo Wen. When the first wave died, the next wave took its place. In just an instant, the entire open space was filled with evil beings, causing one's scalp to go numb. Zhuowen, who was in the middle of the open space, had unleashed the fifth move of the Moon Demon Secret Codex, Blood Explosion, to the extreme. Powerful blood energy constantly crushed the evil creatures around him. At the same time, the energy of the blood explosion was constantly absorbing the blood essence of the evil creatures, creating a continuous flow of blood-colored balls. The moment the blood-colored balls were created, they instantly exploded. The powerful explosion crushed even more evil creatures. The blood explosion was originally a move suitable for group battles. With this move, Zhuowen had a much easier time dealing with the endless horde of evil creatures. However, he still couldn't withstand the endless stream of evil creatures that pounced on him from all directions. In every wave, there would always be many evil creatures that broke through Zhuowen's defense and attacked him. Fortunately, the blood-colored maple leaves around Zhuowen's body had an astonishing defensive power. They could basically block the attacks of the evil creatures that slipped through the net. This is already the 20th wave. The number of evil creatures has already reached more than 1,000. Could it be that it's not over yet? Zhuowen muttered to himself with a heavy expression as he barely managed to deal with the densely packed evil creatures around him. Although Zhuowen could still hold on by relying on the Moon Demon Secret Codex's Blood Explosion and Blood Maple Dance, if there was another wave, the number of evil creatures would double again. That would be close to 2,000. When that time came, Zhuowen wasn't sure if he could handle it. Thinking of this, Zhuowen couldn't help but raise his head and look at Alice's doppelganger. However, when he looked over, he was surprised to find that Alice's doppelganger had actually disappeared. Hey! What about Alice's doppelganger? Why did it disappear? Zhuowen couldn't help but be surprised. Boy, be careful. That Alice's doppelganger is a little strange. That guy is now mixed in with the evil creatures and is quietly approaching you. Xiao Hei's solemn voice suddenly sounded in his mind. As soon as Xiao Hei spoke, the sound of the wind tearing through the air suddenly swept out from behind Zhuowen. Countless energy spirals fiercely spun like spirals, sharp and strange. Zhuowen instantly felt the sound of wind breaking behind him. Although he really wanted to dodge, the endless evil beings around him almost exhausted him from running for his life. He simply couldn't do anything else. Looks like I can only take it head on. As he spoke, the origin energy within Zhuowen's meridians suddenly surged out explosively, causing the blood-red maple leaves around him to become even more dazzling and bright, and they'd practically attained the state of being dense like blur. Whoosh! The sound of wind breaking could be heard in an instant. It was a long spear made purely of magma. On the surface of the long spear, there was even a large amount of flowing magma liquid. Boom! The magma spear instantly blasted the blood-colored maple leaves on the surface of Zhuowen's body. The unique high temperature of the magma actually faintly showed signs of melting the blood-colored maple leaves. As expected, the blood-colored maple leaves were only able to withstand the attack of the magma spear for a moment before being blasted into fine powder. Whoosh! After breaking through the defense of the blood-colored maple leaves, the magma spear swept towards Zhuowen's back like a hot knife through butter. If the spear directly hit Zhuowen's back, it was very likely that Zhuowen's spine would be broken. Infinite Sword Gale, come out. However, Zhuowen was not in a hurry. He patted his storage bag and instantly took out the Grade 4 Vital Array, Infinite Sword Gale. Clang clang clang. The sound of metal clashing suddenly whistled out. 108 sword-shaped soul treasures exuded a sharp cold light and instantly surrounded Zhuowen's body like an impenetrable copper wall. Bang! At the same time, the magma spear violently blasted the defense of the Infinite Sword Gale. In an instant, countless sparks burst out like stars in the night sky, gorgeous and dazzling. After all, the Infinite Sword Gale was a Grade 4 Vital Array. Furthermore, it was formed by 108 sword-shaped soul treasures. Hence, one could imagine how hard it was. With a cracking sound, the magma spear violently collided with the defense of the Infinite Sword Gale and instantly disintegrated. Hey! You have a lot of treasures on you. You can actually annihilate my magma spear by relying on your defense. The 108 sword-shaped soul treasures around you are very unusual. A sharp voice suddenly came from the surrounding evil creatures. Alice's doppelganger? Although the voice became much sharper, Zhuowen could still recognize the owner of the voice. It was Alice's doppelganger who had told him about the trial at the beginning. However, what Zhuowen did not understand was that Alice's doppelganger did not have any spiritual intelligence. Why was he able to speak so fluently and even sneak attack him from behind? However, Zhuowen quickly recalled what Alice had said. It was said that the trial ground under the Divine Temple had been eroded by the king of evil creatures. Perhaps Alice's doppelganger was simply a fake, and it was very likely that he was. You are the king of evil creatures? Zhuowen's hand movements were not slow. The crimson spear was like cutting straw as it rapidly harvested the evil creatures around him like a tide. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and said loudly, "Hee, kid, you are quite smart. Your guess is 70 to 80% correct. In order to let you know, I will not be secretive. I am the extremely honorable Netherworld King, the king of all the Netherworld race. This trial ground built by Aris has been completely invaded by this king. This entire place is this king's territory. You and the other two teams are simply courting death by barging in, therefore, you should accept your fate. There is no need to struggle. The open space you are in is the mother nest magma created by me. In the magma, there is an endless number of Netherworld race larvae. You can't kill all of these larvae at all. When the time comes, you will only die from exhaustion." Hee. The sharp voice became extremely gloomy at this time. Hearing this, Zhuowen's expression changed. He did not expect to fall into the mother nest magma created by the Netherworld King as soon as he entered the trial ground. Moreover, Zhuowen finally understood why the evil creatures that appeared in the open space were so weak. It turned out that they were only larvae of the Netherworld race. Moreover, according to what the Netherworld King said just now, the teams from Nine Dragons City and Thunder Universe City that entered earlier than him seemed to have fallen into a similar situation. Obviously, this mother nest magma was not just here. It was very likely that there were several similar mother nest magma locations. Xiaohei. What should I do now? If I continue to fight, the number of evil creatures will only increase. In the end, I will definitely be exhausted to death. While dealing with the evil creatures around him, Zhuowen hurriedly called out to Xiaohei in his mind. He knew that Xiaohei, an ancient antique that had lived for 10,000 years, would definitely have a solution. This so-called mother nest magma is rather interesting. However, there is nothing in this world that is invincible and has no weakness. Boy, as long as you kill the Netherworld King's clone that is hiding among the evil creatures, this mother nest magma will lose its energy supply and be completely destroyed. Regardless of whether it was experience or observation, Zhuowen could not compare to an ancient antique like Xiaohei. Therefore, Zhuoan did not doubt that Xiao He could see the weakness of the mother nest magma. The only way to find the Netherworld King's clone that is hiding among the evil creatures is to wipe out all the evil creatures in the open space. Looking at the dense horde of evil creatures on the ground, Zhuoan also felt a slight headache. It was not easy to eliminate so many evil creature larvae in an instant. No. There are too many evil creatures. Even if we wipe out most of them, the mother nest magma will produce more evil creature larvae. It is impossible to wipe out all the evil creatures in the open space in an instant. After looking around the open space, Zhuoan quickly rejected the idea of wiping out the evil creatures in the open space. This idea was simply unrealistic to him. Boy, wait for an opportunity. Since the Netherworld King's clone has already attacked you once, there will definitely be a second time. As long as you appear to be on the verge of collapse and are surrounded by danger, the Netherworld King's clone will definitely not be able to hold back an attack. Therefore, you can only wait for now. Wait for the Netherworld King's clone to attack. That will be your only chance. Xiao He's voice rang out again. Hearing this, Zhuoan's eyes immediately lit up. He nodded cautiously and continued to focus on dealing with the evil creatures in the surrounding area. At the same time, Zhuoan intentionally or unintentionally showed signs of difficulty. Among the densely packed evil creatures, a figure that did not fit in with the evil creatures in the surroundings was like a venomous snake hunting for its prey. It lay dormant quietly, and a pair of sharp eyes silently observed the figure in the middle of the open space who was doing his best to kill the evil creatures. This figure was Alice Clone that had appeared in the open space at the beginning. At this moment, Alice Clone's eyes were an extremely strange scarlet color. It was the Netherworld King's clone in disguise. Hee. This kid is really difficult to deal with. I can't believe he can hold on until now. However, I would like to see how long you can hold on. When you start to show signs of exhaustion, that will be the time of your death. The Netherworld King was very patient. He had been lying dormant among the evil creatures as he silently observed Zhuoan in the middle of the open space. Time passed by in this strange atmosphere. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Zhuoan, who was in the open space, finally began to show signs of exhaustion. There was an endless stream of evil creatures around him. Many of them broke through Zhuoan's defense and attacked Zhuoan mercilessly with their dark, sharp claws. Fortunately, Zhuoan's body was surrounded by an iron wall formed by the infinite sword force. Therefore, he was still able to hold on. Hee. Half a day has passed. This kid shouldn't be able to hold on any longer. It's time to kill this kid. The Netherworld King's scarlet eyes flickered continuously. He quietly crept closer to the center of the open space. At the same time, the Netherworld King's right hand had secretly condensed a magma dagger. Now is the time. This kid is dead meat. Chapter 391. King of Hadeswush. The Lord of the Underworld approached Zhuoan silently. His right hand, which was holding the dagger, was as swift as lightning as he slashed at Zhuoan's neck. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smug smile. He knew that the brat in front of him was dead meat. Clang. The sound of metal colliding resounded abruptly, and then the Nether King's pupils constricted abruptly. Because he noticed that when his dagger struck Zhuoan's neck, it was as if he'd struck an extremely hard rock, and it actually caused strands of sparks to erupt. At the same time, he noticed that the skin on Zhuoan's neck was actually suffused with a trace of a strange glazed sheen. How is that possible? How could this kid's body be so tough? Even the dagger made of lava couldn't break his skin. At this moment, the Lord of the Underworld was stunned. The dagger that he had swung out had accurately struck Zhuoan's neck. However, he had never imagined that this person's physical body would be so terrifyingly tough. He had actually withstood the dagger's attack. Hee. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Lord of the Underworld, since you've delivered yourself to me, don't blame me for being impolite. Zhuoan turned his neck and looked coldly at the stunned Lord of the Underworld from the corner of his eyes. Not good. Retreat. The Lord of the Underworld cursed in his heart. He stomped his foot on the ground and was about to retreat rapidly. However, how could Zhuoan, who had been waiting for this moment, allow the Lord of the Underworld to leave just like that? Where are you going? Since you're here, there's no need for you to leave. With a low shout, Zhuowen reached out with his right hand at lightning speed. His skin, which glowed with a glassy luster, was not afraid of being bitten by the evil beings in the surroundings. He directly grabbed one of the Lord of the Underworld's hands. Damn it! Let go right now. The king of the Netherworld howled fiercely, and his expression instantly became extremely savage. At the same time, the attacks of the countless evil creature larvae became extremely ferocious. They pounced directly on Zhuowen's body, breaking through the defense of the blood-colored maple leaves outside Zhuowen's body in an instant. Then, they fiercely bombarded the defense of the infinite sword aura. Brat! I advise you to let go. Otherwise, my children will drown you in an instant, and no one will be able to save you. The Nether King's clone didn't have much combat strength. After probing it a while ago, Zhuowen also discovered that the strength of this clone was equivalent to a cultivator at the perfect Heavenly King stage. Clearly, this clone wasn't specifically used for combat. Instead, it was used to replenish the mother nest's magma so that it could continuously produce a sufficient number of evil creature larvae. This was an extremely rare opportunity. If he were to give it up, Zhuowen knew that it would be extremely difficult for him to capture the clone of the Lord of the Underworld. Hence, he could not give up now. Lightning Serpent Wings, Lightning Flood Dragon Wings, activate. Ignoring the Nether King's threat, Zhuowen let out a low roar and stomped his foot on the ground. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning filled the surroundings of Zhuowen's body. Many evil beings were struck by this sudden lightning and turned into ashes. Whoosh! Countless bolts of lightning condensed on Zhuowen's back and turned into two pairs of enormous lightning wings. Countless lightning serpents surged out of the lightning serpent wings, and the lightning flood dragon wings released densely packed lightning flood dragons. In an instant, all the evil beings within a 50-foot radius around Zhuowen were wiped out. You actually still have a trump card. Damn it, you've been hiding your strength all this time. Seeing the two pairs of terrifying lightning wings on Zhuowen's back, the Nether King's expression instantly turned extremely ugly. Even now, he still couldn't figure out that Zhuowen's physical exhaustion was just an act. Now, stop these evil creature larvae in the open space, otherwise, I'll kill you right away. Grabbing the Nether King's right arm with his right hand, Zhuowen didn't slow down. His left hand turned into a claw and grabbed the Nether King's neck as he spoke with a cold gaze. Haha, it's my bad luck to fall into your hands. However, you want my children to stop. That's just wishful thinking. Hehe, do you think that as long as you kill me, you'll be able to make the mother nest magma lose its energy supply? The Nether King's crimson eyes were filled with mockery as he spoke coldly. Hearing that, Zhuowen's gaze suddenly turned cold, and an ominous premonition flashed through his heart. Hehe. To tell you the truth, you're right. This piece of magma is provided by this incarnation of mine. However, this king has a habit of storing a certain amount of energy in the magma. This is for the sake of being prepared. Lord Hell continued before Zhuowen could answer. You're right. This piece of magma is provided by this incarnation of mine. However, I have a habit of storing a certain amount of energy in the magma. In other words, even if this clone of mine dies, the mother nest magma won't stop immediately. Instead, it will continue to produce the Nether King's larvae. The mother nest magma will only stop when all the energy I've stored is used up. However, I don't know if you'll be able to hold on until then. At this point, the Nether King stared provocatively at Zhuowen with a cold smile on his face. Zhuowen's face instantly turned gloomy. If what the Nether King said was true, even if he killed the clone of the Nether King, the mother nest magma surrounding the empty space would not stop operating. At that time, the number of evil beings would continue to increase. Hehe. No matter what you choose, you'll end up dead. Therefore, I advise you to let go of this clone of mine and die obediently. At that time, I might even leave you with a complete corpse. The Nether King became even more complacent when he saw that Zhuowen's expression had changed. Noisy fellow, since you're useless, then go to hell. Zhuowen stared coldly at the Nether King. He clenched his fist, and a violent origin energy immediately invaded the Nether King's body. With a crisp cracking sound, the Nether King was instantly blasted into ashes by the powerful origin energy. Good, good, good. You've really got guts. Since you've killed my clone, you can forget about living. Children, attack as much as you want. As soon as the Nether King's clone died, a tyrannical voice suddenly sounded from afar. The voice was filled with rage. It was obvious that the voice came from the main body of the Nether King, who was in the depths of the training ground. Roar. As soon as the voice of the Nether King's main body sounded, all the evil beings on the empty space howled excitedly at the sky. Soon after, they attacked Zhuowen even more ferociously. Almost all of them did not care about their lives. Moreover, the mother nest magma was creating more evil beings at a faster speed than before. Now, the entire empty space was filled with a black mass of evil beings. In just an instant, the pressure on Zhuowen increased by a lot. Both of his hands quickly brandished the blood-colored great spear. The yuan power in his body was even more extravagant. Again and again, he killed all the evil creature larvae that approached him. The cruel fresh blood almost dyed Zhuowen's entire body into a strange bloodman. If you want to kill me, Zhuowen, it won't be that easy. Zhuowen's eyes had also turned red from the killing. With a roar from his throat, he used all the moves in the Yaoyu secret manual again and again, turning the endless number of evil beings into a sea of blood. Fortunately, Zhuowen relied on the defense of the blood maple dance, the boundless sword intent, and the 2 pairs of lightning wings, so he didn't suffer too much damage. Even if he was surrounded by evil beings, he could rely on the speed of his lightning wings to avoid fatal attacks. Of course, the disadvantage of using all his strength like this was that the origin energy in Zhuowen's body was depleted too quickly. In the blink of an eye, nearly half of his origin energy had been consumed. Fortunately, Zhuowen's dantian still retained some origin energy. Relying on this origin energy, the speed at which Zhuowen replenished his origin energy was greatly increased. This was why he was able to hold on. Just as Zhuowen was bathed in blood and killing in the lava of the mother nest, in the depths of the training ground sat an extremely magnificent castle. If one looked carefully, this castle was purely formed by countless black chains. Waves of strange and eerie aura spread out from the castle. On top of the black castle's high walls, a slender figure stood quietly. This was a youth who looked to be about 15 years old. He had black hair and black eyes. Even his lips were purplish black. He was dressed in a purplish black robe, and his entire body emitted a trace of the aura of nobility. At this moment, the black-haired youth frowned slightly. His delicate face revealed a trace of ferocity as he muttered to himself, The first broodmother's doppelganger had been dealt with, and by a young boy who had come alone to deal with it. This king's doppelganger is not so easy to kill. Once you kill it, you must be prepared to be killed. That brat will definitely not be able to withstand the final counterattack of the mother nest's magma. After all, that brat is alone and his strength is extremely limited. Even if he is very strong, under the attacks of countless Netherworld race youngsters, there will come a time when his strength will be exhausted. At that time, that brat will die. The youthful Netherworld king did not care about the mother nest where Zhuowen was at. In his opinion, Zhuowen was dead meat. However, the other 2 teams have 8 people, and each of them is not weak. In particular, the captains of the 2 teams are not weaker than the youth in the first mother nest. If the 8 of them work together, it is very likely that they will be able to break through the mother nest's attack and reach this Netherworld castle. It's been a long time since I met a stronger opponent. I hope these 2 teams can let this king have a little more fun, the black-haired youth muttered to himself, and an extremely strange smile appeared on his face. However, the smile at the corner of his mouth soon froze, and his expression changed drastically as he looked in the direction of the first mother nest. What? The first mother nest's magma has been broken through? How did this brat do it? At this moment, the Netherworld king's expression was filled with disbelief. This was because he had sensed that the first mother nest's magma had been directly destroyed. Yes, it had been directly destroyed, and not because the mother nest's magma had run out of energy and stopped functioning. Chapter 392. Attack. If this goes on, I'll definitely be exhausted to death by these nefarious larvae. Furthermore, I don't know how much energy the Nether King's clone has stored in the mother nest's magma, or how much more energy it can sustain the mother nest's magma. I need to get rid of the mother nest's magma in one go. Surrounded by the endless wave of nefarious larvae, Zhuowen's gaze became increasingly solemn. He knew that if he continued to waste his energy on these nefarious larvae, he would really perish in the mother nest's magma. Kid. Let's use extreme freeze. These nefarious larvae were born from the endless magma and have a natural fear of all things cold. If you use extreme freeze, you might be able to restrain these nefarious larvae. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Hearing this, Zhuowen came to a sudden realization. Magma was a material of extreme yang. Since these nefarious larvae were born from magma, they must be naturally fond of yang. Naturally, they would not be interested in things of extreme yin and extreme cold. Then let's see if extreme freeze is really effective. As he spoke, Zhuowen clenched his right hand, and the ice rune on the back of his hand immediately lit up. Soon after, a blue crystal condensed in Zhuowen's palm. This blue crystal was the core source of the extreme cold frost. As soon as the blue crystal appeared, waves of bone-chilling cold immediately flowed out, forming an extremely strange domain of ice and snow in a radius of 15 meters around Zhuowen. Drifting snowflakes sprinkled down one after another. Awoo! As soon as the blue crystal appeared, the nefarious larvae that were originally unafraid of death stopped in their tracks. They stopped outside the ice and snow domain and stared fiercely at Zhuowen in front of them. It really works. Zhuowen's eyes flashed with a trace of bright light as he looked at the evil creature's larvae that had stopped attacking in an instant. His face revealed a joyful expression. Xiao Hei's guess was right. These evil creatures' larvae were extremely afraid of the cold. Kid. Don't waste time, use extreme freeze immediately and freeze the entire mother nest's magma. This way, you can directly annihilate all the nefarious larvae in the mother nest's magma. At this moment, Xiao Hei's voice was somewhat impatient as she hurriedly urged. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. With a thought, the blue crystal in the palm of his right hand suddenly released an endless amount of ice and snow energy, forming a huge snowstorm in the open space. Awoo! As soon as the snowstorm formed, all the nefarious larvae on the ground trembled in fear. They simply did not have the courage to face the snowstorm formed by extreme freeze. Wherever the snowstorm passed, the nefarious larvae of the nefarious larvae of ice, the nefarious larvae of the nefarious larvae of nefarious larvae. Too slow. Kid, did you eat or not? You can only use extreme freeze's power. You should know that the extreme cold frost is the most powerful existence among all the earth-rank cold chi. Yet, it can only display such a small amount of power in your hands. You've really buried the reputation of the extreme cold frost, Blackie said in an extremely rude manner. Shrugging his shoulders, Zhuowen did not refute. Instead, with a flip of his right hand, the blue crystal immediately merged into his palm. Soon after, his right palm fiercely slammed on the ground. Immediately, with Zhuowen as the center, the entire open space was instantly frozen by a thick layer of ice. In an instant, all the nefarious larvae on the open space could not escape the fate of being frozen by this extremely powerful ice energy. Crack! With a stomp of his foot, an invisible force fiercely spread out from under Zhuowen's feet. Immediately, the nefarious larvae that had been frozen into ice sculptures trembled under this force and shattered into countless ice shards. Sigh. If I had known that these nefarious larvae had such a weakness, I wouldn't have had such a hard time fighting them earlier. Looking at the open space that had become extremely spacious, Zhuowen's mouth revealed a trace of a relaxed smile. Being attacked by an endless amount of nefarious larvae was not a pleasant feeling. Sitting down on the ground, Zhuowen discovered that there was not much yuan power left in his body. Thinking back to how if it wasn't for Xiao Hei finding the weakness of these nefarious larvae, he would have very likely died from exhaustion. His back was drenched in sweat. He had really taken a trip to the gates of life and death just now. Kid. Actually, you could have taken out the reverse spirit puppet to help you kill these nefarious larvae. With the strength of the reverse spirit puppet that is comparable to an ultimate Emperor Realm practitioner, It should have been extremely easy to deal with these nefarious larvae. However, you didn't do so. This makes this Dragon Lord feel rather strange. At this moment, Xiao Hei had also come out of Zhuowen's body. A pair of small black eyes stared at Zhuowen as she asked with some doubt. He. If I rely on the reverse spirit puppet whenever I encounter difficulties, it will only be harmful to me and won't be beneficial at all. The reason why I haven't summoned the reverse spirit puppet for so long is because I want to see what my limits are. Only when I push myself to the limit can I stimulate my own potential. At this moment, it's easiest to break through the bottleneck. Zhuowen's face revealed a rare trace of seriousness as he continued. Moreover, the reverse spirit puppet is my greatest trump card. If I use it early, the Lord of the Underworld will know in advance. This way, the Lord of the Underworld will always be on guard against the reverse spirit puppet. At that time, when I encounter the Lord of the Underworld, I won't be able to achieve the effect of catching him off guard. Kid. You've thought it through quite thoroughly. Xiao Hei nodded slightly. For the first time, a trace of admiration appeared in her small eyes. Boom. 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 An earth-shattering sound suddenly rang out. Zhuowen and Xiao Hei suddenly raised their heads when they heard the sound. Immediately, they discovered that at the edge of the open space in front of them, a staircase formed by black chains had appeared directly. The staircase extended upwards into the infinite distance. Zhuowen and Xiao Hei could not see where the staircase led to. It seems that after passing the test of the mother nest's magma, we can directly enter the next stage. Looking at the staircase formed by black chains in front of him, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly as he muttered to himself. Moreover, he had a feeling that after passing through the staircase that extended from above, he might be able to meet the Lord of the Underworld's true body very soon. Xiao Hei. Since the extreme frost has an extremely strong restraining effect on evil creature larvae, I wonder if the Lord of the Underworld is also afraid of the extreme frost. Zhuowen suddenly asked as he looked at Xiao Hei in front of him. That's not very likely. If the evil creature matures, I'm afraid that it won't be affected by the extreme frost. When you were in the Qingshui tribe, you fought with the mature evil creature. You should know how strong its physical body is. It has reached a stage where it is completely impervious to fire and water. Furthermore, the Lord of the Underworld is the king of evil creatures. I'm afraid that its physical body is much more terrifying than the evil creature you encountered in the Qingshui tribe. How could it be restrained by the extreme frost? Xiao Hei said in a deep voice. It seems that the Lord of the Underworld is not easy to deal with. I can't just go up now. It's best if I successfully cultivate the 7th level of the Jadestone body tempering technique before going up. Only then will I have more confidence in dealing with the Lord of the Underworld. Zhuowen nodded and said rather gravely. Having battled with evil creatures before, he knew how terrifying their physical bodies were. Their physical bodies were no weaker than Zhuowen's, who had cultivated the Jadestone body tempering technique to the peak of the 6th level. In the end, Zhuowen had to rely on the Ice and Fire Lotus to completely break through the evil creature's defense and destroy it. The Lord of the Underworld's strength was above that of the evil creature. Perhaps even the Ice and Fire Lotus wouldn't be able to cause much damage to the Lord of the Underworld. You're right. I can feel that the Lord of the Underworld's strength is extremely terrifying. I'm afraid that his strength isn't weaker than a peak Ultimate Emperor Realm warrior. Coupled with his physical body that's even stronger than the evil creatures, you'll be courting death if you go up with your current strength. Even if you have the reverse spirit puppet, your chances of winning aren't very high. However, if you can break through to the 7th level of the Jadestone body tempering technique, then your physical body will be no weaker than the Lord of the Underworld's. At that time, even the Lord of the Underworld won't be able to do anything to you. Xiao Hei agreed. Hearing Xiao Hei's words, Zhuowen also knew that if he rashly went up now, it would be extremely disadvantageous for him. It looked like he had to break through to the 7th level of the Jadestone body tempering technique. Moreover, once Zhuowen broke through to the 7th level of the Jadestone body tempering technique, he would have more confidence in dealing with the tribulation of heaven and earth that would appear when he broke through to the Ultimate Emperor Realm. Right now, Zhuowen had already reached the peak of the half-step Ultimate Emperor Realm. Moreover, just like Feng Long of Nine Dragons City, he could break through to the ultimate Emperor realm at any time. However, because he was afraid of the terrifying tribulation of heaven and earth, Zhuowen didn't rashly break through to the ultimate Emperor realm. Moreover, if he slowly accumulated his strength like this, once he broke through to the ultimate Emperor realm, he would be able to instantly reach the mid or even late ultimate Emperor realm. At that time, Zhuowen would be able to instantly reach the mid or even late ultimate Emperor realm. He wouldn't be like ordinary half-step ultimate Emperor realm cultivators who only reached the early ultimate Emperor realm after breaking through. When he thought of this, Zhuowen sat cross-legged on the ground that was already frozen. He took out the refined crystal jades from his Chenkuan bag and began to silently cultivate the jadestone body tempering technique. Because Zhuowen had already used the refined crystal jades to raise the jadestone body tempering technique to the peak of the 6th level on his journey to the Holy Region, he was only half a step away from the 7th level. In addition, he had a sufficient amount of refined crystal jades in his storage bag, so it wouldn't take too much time for him to break through to the 7th level of the jadestone body tempering technique. While Zhuowen was silently cultivating in the lava of the mother nest, in the depths of the training grounds, within the Netherworld castle, the youthful Netherworld king frowned slightly. This was because he sensed that although the first mother nest's lava had been destroyed and the chain stairs should have appeared by now, Zhuowen still hadn't appeared at the exit of the mother nest's lava. What's going on? Did that brat perish together with the mother nest's lava? Logically speaking, since the chain stairs have already appeared, that brat should have followed them out, but he still hasn't appeared. Chapter 393. Flower of Flames. Nation. Time flew by, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The first brood mother nest was completely sealed in ice, turning into a domain of ice and snow. In the middle of this icy domain, a lonely figure sat cross-legged in silence. Around this figure were dozens of flame-shaped jades suspended in the air. Waves of blazing flames constantly surged out from these jades, forming a ring around the figure, constantly tempering his bare upper body. This figure was naturally Zhuowen. At this moment, Zhuowen's upper body was bare, revealing his muscular body. At this moment, his exposed skin was an extremely glossy glaze, and the surrounding blazing flames did not leave the slightest trace on Zhuowen's body. Suddenly, Zhuowen opened his eyes and shouted in a low voice, "Whether or not I can break through to the 7th level of the jade stone body tempering technique will depend on this moment. Break all the refined jades for me." Both of Zhuowen's hands quickly formed a complicated seal. The muscles all over his body immediately swelled up, and the glass-like luster overflowing on the surface of his body became even brighter. At the same time, the 10 tempering crystal jades surrounding Zhuowen shattered into pieces, and waves of even more ferocious flames shot out from the surroundings. At this moment, all the potential of the refined jades had been stimulated by Zhuowen, blooming into the most blazing flower of flames. This flower of flames wrapped around Zhuowen, as if Zhuowen had become the core of the entire flower of flames. The flower of flames was in a budding state, and Zhuowen knew that once this flower of flames bloomed with 5 petals, it would mean that he had successfully broken through to the 7th level of the jade stone body tempering technique. If it withered midway, it would mean that the breakthrough had failed. At this moment, the temperature of the budding flower of flames had reached an extremely frightening level. Even though Zhuowen's body had reached the peak of the 6th level of the jade stone body tempering technique, his glazed skin was still roasted by this high temperature, and began to curl up slightly. A burnt smell wafted from Zhuowen's body. The extreme pain of his burning body involuntarily caused Zhuowen's eyes to crack. Both of his hands were tightly clenched. His fingernails dug into his palms. Traces of cherry-red blood dripped from Zhuowen's palms. However, Zhuowen clenched his teeth and endured without making a sound. He knew that if he did not endure, all his preparations over the past 3 days would be wasted. Kai. The first petal of the flower of flames bloomed brilliantly, and its gorgeous and beautiful figure swayed vividly in this land of ice and snow. At this moment, the temperature of the flames suddenly doubled. The blazing high temperature directly charred most of Zhuowen's body, and the unpleasant smell of roasted meat continuously wafted out. The sudden increase in temperature caused Zhuowen to let out a low roar. At this moment, Zhuowen, who was in the middle of the flower of flames, felt as if he was in hell. This kind of pain was not something that an ordinary person could endure. Hold on, kid, as long as you can get through this, your body will truly be reborn, Xiao He muttered softly with a serious gaze. Even it could clearly feel the terrifying temperature of the flower of flames. This kind of high temperature was enough to destroy anyone with a strong will. Therefore, Xiao He was a little worried that Zhuowen would not be able to get through this. Fortunately, Zhuowen was originally a person with a strong will. In addition, after experiencing so many life and death situations, Zhuowen's tenacity was not something that an ordinary person could compare to. After an hour, the flower of flames finally moved again. The second petal slowly bloomed. When the second petal completely bloomed, the temperature of the entire flower of flames actually increased by 2 times. The surrounding land seemed to be on the verge of being scorched. At this moment, Zhuowen's body suddenly trembled. Waves of cold sweat flowed out from all over his body, and many parts of his skin even curled up. Under the blazing high temperature, they were burned to ashes. However, Zhuowen still gritted his teeth and persevered. After another 2 hours, the third and fourth petal also slowly bloomed. At this moment, the temperature of the flower of flames was almost 4 times the initial temperature. The ice and snow around Zhuowen's body were all melted by the high temperature of Zhuowen's body. At this moment, Zhuowen was in an even worse state. All the skin on Zhuowen's body was charred black by the high temperature. It was impossible to see his original appearance. One could only see traces of Zhuowen from the shape of his body and the contours of his charred face. I really did not expect the 7th level of the jade stone body tempering technique to be so cruel. The temperature and destructive power of this flower of flames is almost comparable to the level of earth fire. Although Zhuowen's body has reached the peak of the 6th level of the jade stone body tempering technique, he was still burned so miserably by the flower of flames. Xiao He's expression became a little ugly. Even it did not expect the flower of flames to be so dangerous. At this moment, Zhuowen did not look like a human at all. He was like a piece of charcoal. If not for the fact that Xiao He could still feel a trace of life in Zhuowen's body, it would have thought that Zhuowen was already dead. There is still one last petal of the flower of flames. Once the 5th petal blooms, I'm afraid that the temperature will almost double. At that time, if this brat really can't take it anymore, I have to pull him out. Xiao He secretly decided as it looked deeply at the figure of the flower of flames. Kai. Another half an hour passed. The flames of the flower of flames in the center of the open space suddenly surged. Soon after, the 5th petal slowly bloomed at the top of the flower of flames. At the same time, the temperature of the flower of flames doubled again. Its temperature had almost reached an unheard-of level, showing signs of surpassing that of earth fire. Creak. Within the flower of flames, Zhuowen's hands were tightly clenched into fists. The crisp sounds of his fists cracking were particularly clear in this open space. The intense heat had directly burned Zhuowen's skin to ashes, revealing the mangled flesh and blood underneath. In an instant, all the skin on Zhuowen's body had been burned to ashes by the high temperature, revealing only the bright red flesh and blood-red veins under his skin. Moreover, under the high temperature, Zhuowen's blood was mercilessly evaporating into a blood-red mist. In an instant, the entire flower of flames had turned from a fiery red to a blood-red color. At this moment, the blood-stained flower of flames was sitting alone in this empty space. It appeared so bright and poignant. This was the dazzling beauty that Zhuowen had risked his life to create. Whether it would be reborn and turn into a butterfly, or a short-lived flower that would wither and fade away, everything would be decided at this moment. Not good. The temperature of the flower of flames has actually increased to a terrifying level. That kid Zhuowen's life force is gradually draining away. We must save him as soon as possible. When he saw that the flower of flames had been dyed a blood red by Zhuowen's blood, Xiao He's face filled with shock. He waved his little claws and a wave of ink-black energy surged out from his body. It immediately turned into a huge beast claw and attempted to reach into the flower of flames to pull Zhuowen out. Boom! However, The 5-petaled flower of flames had already completely bloomed, and its power had far surpassed that of an ordinary earthly fire. It had actually managed to block Xiao Hei's attack. Damn it! Once the flower of flames has completely bloomed, its power has actually become so terrifying. Xiao Hei's expression had turned extremely ugly after his attack had failed. He even cursed under his breath. Sigh. Looks like we can only rely on that kid Zhuoan now. If he can survive this, he will definitely be reborn. If he can't, he can only die. Kid, don't die like this. After all, you still have a lot of things to do. After calming down, Xiao Hei stared at the blood-red flower of flames in front of him with an extremely complicated expression. He could only silently pray for Zhuoan in his heart. Fortunately, Xiao Hei could still sense that Zhuoan was still alive, so he did not feel too pessimistic. Time passed by minute by minute. The bright and poignant blood-red flower bloomed over the entire frozen land. The blazing blood-red flames in this world of ice and snow seemed so different and dazzling. Another 2 hours passed and the blood-red flames in the open space suddenly became extremely violent. They suddenly shot up into the sky and formed a huge blood-red pillar of fire. In an instant, the entire frozen land was completely melted by the blood-red flames. The originally frozen magma of the mother nest began to churn once again after the ice had melted. Awoo! At this moment, the magma of the mother nest began to churn again, producing an endless stream of evil creature larvae. These evil creature larvae had scarlet eyes and were fearless of death as they pounced towards the blood-red pillar of fire in the middle of the open space. They could sense that there was a life form that they loathed in the pillar of fire. Phew! This guy didn't die. Looks like he succeeded. But why did this brat purposely melt the frozen land and release these evil creature larvae? The moment the blood-red pillar of fire appeared, Xiao Hei could sense that Zhuoan was still alive. At this moment, his life force had become extremely vigorous. It was obvious that Zhuoan had succeeded in his breakthrough. Thud, thud, thud. The crisp sound of footsteps slowly rang out in the open space. Immediately, a slender figure appeared in the blood-red pillar of fire. This figure's upper body was naked, and strange blood-red flames surrounded this figure. Awoo! In an instant, the open space was once again filled with countless evil creature larvae. These evil creature larvae stared intently at this figure, waiting to strike with their sharp black claws. However, the moment these evil creature larvae approached this figure, a strange blood-red flame suddenly flashed past. The moment these evil creature larvae touched the body of the evil creature larvae, it was as if they had been lit on fire. In an instant, the blood in the evil creature larvae's body became the nourishment of the blood-red flame. Sizzle. 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 The blood-red flame seemed to have a strange power. As long as it touched the body of the evil creature larvae, it would incinerate them endlessly. In an instant, the entire open space was covered with blood-red flames. The huge open space was almost turned into a sea of blood-red flames. Countless mournful screams rang out one after another. The power of this blood-red flame can actually directly burn the blood. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.